Chapter 1488. Time passed quickly. 9 days had passed outside. 9 days outside, but a full 90 days had passed inside the castle. The white-eyed wolf, Lu Hong, Fatso, Lu Zheng, and the spirit snake emperor had all made breakthroughs in their cultivation. As for the mists of the Dragon Phoenix House and Luo Qingzhu, they were both 9-star war emperors, so it was naturally not easy for them to break through again. As for Ling Yunfei, these days he had been processing the beehive in the spatial divine object and had never shown his face. As for Qin Feiyang, after this period of copying, he had only completed a small part of the 5th stroke. It was equivalent to a quarter. Compared to when he was copying the 4th stroke, the speed of copying had increased by several times. However, Qin Feiyang was already very satisfied. After all, according to the time outside, it had only been 9 days. This morning, a large canyon appeared in front of him. Inside the canyon, there was still not a single blade of grass growing, but the ground was filled with bones as if it was hell. The Scorpion Emperor slammed on the brakes and stopped in front of the canyon. He looked at the canyon with fear in his eyes and whispered, "Boss Qin, come out quickly." Swish! Not long after he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang appeared on the back of the Scorpion Emperor. Looking at the canyon in front of him, his pupils constricted slightly as he asked in surprise, "Why are there so many bones?" These bones were all bones of fierce beasts. The Scorpion Emperor said, "This place is called the White Bone Canyon. There is a group of people who eat people without spitting out the bones. I think it's best to take a detour. Eat people without spitting out the bones. What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Ghost wolf," the Scorpion Emperor said. Ghost wolf. Qin Feiyang was surprised. This was actually another creature that was as famous as the Spirit Snake Emperor. It was born without any aura, like a ghost walking in the night. And the ghost wolf also had a kind of innate ability. They could absorb the essence of the moon and raise their cultivation by 4 small realms in an instant. In other words, at night, the ghost wolf was an extremely terrifying creature. However, during the day, their innate ability could not be activated. It was passed down. In ancient times, people who wanted to hunt the ghost wolf during the day. But it was not easy to hunt the ghost wolf. Firstly, he couldn't sense their auras. Secondly, they would only come out to hunt at night and would usually hide during the day. It was very difficult to find them. Why do I hate wolves so much? It's because of these ghost wolves that occasionally come to harass us. Look at the bones here. Some of them are my clansmen. Scorpion Emperor said in disgust. Qin Feiyang carefully observed the white bones on the ground, and he really did find some corpses of spirit demon scorpions. He pondered for a moment. Qin Feiyang asked, "How long will it take if we take a detour?" The mountains on both sides of the slanting valley are also the territory of the ghost wolves. If we want to bypass the wolf pack, it should take about half a month. The Scorpion Emperor said after pondering for a moment. Half a month? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Fire Qilin, Dan Wangkai, Viper, and the others were in an unknown situation. He didn't know if they were in any danger. Therefore, time was equivalent to life. He couldn't afford to waste half a month. He had to pass through this place as soon as possible. Right. There's one more thing I haven't told you. These ghost wolves also control a water source. The Scorpion Emperor said. What? There's a water source here. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes, it's at the end of the canyon. The Scorpion Emperor nodded. This? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He originally thought that there was only one water source in the miracle. There are many water sources in the miracle. As far as I know, there are 5 water sources within a radius of 1 million miles. But without exception, they are all occupied by powerful beast emperors. Moreover, these beast emperors are the same as the little crocodiles. They all have a divine artifact. The Scorpion Emperor said, his eyes full of desire. 5 water sources, and they all have a divine artifact. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Didn't this mean that as long as he found the other 4 water sources, he could get 4 more divine artifacts? His breathing suddenly became rapid. No wonder Emperor Hong didn't hesitate to put down his face and kneel to him to get a cluster of alchemy fire from him to enter the miracle. With so many divine artifacts, who didn't want them? Not to mention getting all of them. As long as they got 1 or 2, it was enough to dominate a region. Originally, he didn't want to take a detour. Now that he heard that there was a water source at the end of the canyon, he couldn't take a detour. You know, the water source here must also have Kuei water essence. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said with a smile, "Let's go. Go directly into the canyon." "Are you sure?" The Scorpion Emperor said. "Of course." Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "You know there are tigers in the mountain, but you still go to the Tiger Mountain." The Scorpion Emperor shook his head helplessly, moved his huge body, and ran directly into the canyon. Under its trampling, the bones on the ground were crushed. That sound made one's scalp tingle. Ayo! Less than 10 breaths into the canyon, a wolf howl suddenly sounded in front. The Scorpion Emperor's body stiffened and involuntarily stopped. Looking forward, he saw a giant wolf standing on a stone platform halfway up the mountain 1/2 mile away. Its body size was more than 10 meters. The hair all over its body was black and gray. Its 2 fierce eyes were blood red, like 2 red lanterns, glowing with a bloodthirsty light. "It really is a ghost wolf," Qin Feiyang muttered. Moreover, its cultivation was not weak. 9-star war emperor. The Scorpion Emperor scanned his surroundings vigilantly and said in a low voice, "The appearance of a ghost wolf means that we are now surrounded by ghost wolves." "Encirclement," Qin Feiyang muttered and looked at the 2 sides of the canyon. Sure enough, behind some rocks, one could find a huge head. Looking back again, more than a dozen 9-star war emperor giant wolves were at the entrance of the canyon, cutting off Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion Emperor's retreat. These guys are really like ghosts. They surrounded us without anyone noticing. But don't worry, I'm here. Let's continue forward. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. The Scorpion Emperor nodded and walked forward while looking around. Looking at its cautious appearance, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but want to laugh and said helplessly, "Can you hurry up? Do you only have this much courage?" Who said that? The Scorpion Emperor seemed to have its tail stepped on and almost jumped up. Qin Feiyang laughed. "If you're not afraid, why are you so timid?" Who said I'm timid? I'm just being careful. The Scorpion Emperor said confidently. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled and said, "Cut the crap. Hurry up. Don't be like a woman dawdling." "I'm not a woman," the Scorpion Emperor said angrily. The sharp claws under its feet waved crazily. It was as if there were countless kitchen knives chopping vegetables, turning into a stream of light and rushing forward. Elwo, seeing that the Scorpion Emperor did not stop, but instead sped up, the giant wolf standing halfway up the mountain let out another long howl, shaking the canyon. The howl carried a trace of anger and threat. The Scorpion Emperor said angrily, "Roar your sister. Look who this emperor is. Roar again, and I'll chop you up." The giant wolf's eyes were filled with murderous intent. It leaped down and landed on the ground with a bang, blocking in front of Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion Emperor. "Even the Wolf King has to give me some face, and you dare to block my way? Get out of my way right now," the Scorpion Emperor said angrily. The giant wolf glanced at the Scorpion Emperor and stared at Qin Feiyang. "You can pass through the Bone Canyon, but this human can't." The Scorpion Emperor said, "He's my friend." "Do you think I'm stupid? As the Scorpion Emperor, would you be friends with a human?" The giant wolf sneered. The Scorpion Emperor said in a deep voice, "This is my business. You don't have to interfere." "Stop pretending. We've received news about you, the Crocodile Emperor, the Ant Emperor, and the Spider Emperor. Your people have been slaughtered by humans. The water source ruled by the Crocodile Emperor has also been destroyed. And now, You've brought this human here for the water source. I'm warning you. If you don't want us to do it, let go of that human immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for disregarding our old friendship and killing you too. The giant wolf laughed sinisterly. Presumptuous! The Scorpion Emperor was burning with anger. Not only did he not slow down, he even sped up and charged directly at the giant wolf. Stubborn! The giant wolf laughed sinisterly and retreated to the side like lightning. The Scorpion Emperor swept past and snorted, "If you dare to block the way again, I won't show mercy." With that, he left without looking back. The giant wolf did not chase after him. He walked to the center of the canyon and looked at the backs of the Scorpion Emperor and Qin Feiyang. The wolves lurking around also came out one by one and gathered behind the giant wolf. They stared at the man and beast, their eyes flashing fiercely. Suddenly, one of the ghost wolves retracted his gaze and looked at the giant wolf. "Do you want to kill them?" "No hurry." The giant wolf looked up at the sky and sneered. "They need at least 3 days to pass through the Bone Canyon. We have plenty of chances." The group of ghost wolves heard and immediately laughed sinisterly. At the same time, in the canyon, Qin Feiyang stood on the back of the Scorpion Emperor and looked up at the 10 suns in the sky, his face full of worry. "Did you see that, boss? That little wolf cub was so scared by me that he didn't dare to make a sound. Now he still dares to say that I'm afraid of everything?" The Scorpion Emperor said proudly. "Sigh." Qin Feiyang heaved a long sigh. "What are you sighing for?" The Scorpion Emperor was puzzled. Qin Feiyang did not answer and asked, "With your speed, how long will it take to pass through the Bone Canyon?" The Scorpion Emperor thought for a moment and said, "It should take 3 days and 3 nights." 3 days and 3 nights, Qin Feiyang murmured and sighed. "That confirms my guess even more." "What guess?" The Scorpion Emperor was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, "Those ghost wolves didn't attack just now not because they were scared by you, but because they planned to attack at night." "At night?" The Scorpion Emperor was surprised. "That's right. You have the cultivation of the Peak Realm, and their strongest is only a 9-star War Emperor, so they know that they can't kill you during the day. But at night, when the moon comes out, they can activate their innate ability. And according to the ancient records, their innate ability is enough to increase their cultivation to the peak realm of 9-star War Emperor. Based on your familiarity with the ghost wolves, I believe you should know this as well." Chapter 1489. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Scorpion King's heart sank. Previously, it had never thought about this problem. Qin Feiyang said, "There should be many 6-star combat emperors and ghost wolves in this canyon." Scorpion King said, "As far as I know, there are at least 50,000 of them." "That's a terrifying number." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. If the ghost wolves didn't have this innate ability, it wouldn't matter, because he, Scorpion King, the 4 beasts, and Li Jian could kill their way out. However, the innate ability of the ghost wolves was too terrifying. It increased their cultivation by 4 small realms. As long as a 6-star combat emperor ghost wolf activated its innate ability, its cultivation would increase to the peak of a 9-star combat emperor. In other words, once night fell, the cultivation of these 50,000 ghost wolves would all soar to the peak realm. 50,000 wolves at the peak of a 9-star combat emperor. What kind of concept was that? Even if he used all his means without holding back, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. After all, whether it was a divine weapon or a divine art, there was a limit. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, Scorpion King's heart couldn't help but beat faster. But he had already used his maximum speed and couldn't speed up any further. Time passed quietly. Night gradually fell. A full moon slowly rose from the west. In the canyon there was no sound at all. It was unusually quiet. Qin Feiyang and Scorpion King were unknowingly on guard. Finally, the full moon rose. "Hell! Wolf howls broke the silence of the canyon, piercing through the clouds and resounding through the earth. Boom! Following closely, wisps of terrifying auras burst out from the canyon and the mountains surrounding it. There were 6-star combat emperors, 7-star combat emperors, 8-star combat emperors. There were also 9-star combat emperors. But in less than 10 breaths, these auras all soared to the peak of a 9-star combat emperor, shaking the mountains and rivers. Moreover, Qin Feiyang and Scorpion King could still clearly sense that these auras were surging towards them from all directions. "Boss, what should we do?" Scorpion King looked flustered. With so many ghost wolves at the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm, there was no way to continue playing. Qin Feiyang didn't answer. He glanced at the dark canyon in front of him, his eyes flickering. He could already faintly see pairs of green eyes. There was a bone-piercing sharpness in his eyes, as well as a shocking, murderous aura. It was the same at the rear. The figures of ghost wolves quickly emerged from the mountains on both sides of the canyon. "Before a large number of wolves arrive, I'll kill as many as I can and stack my cultivation as soon as possible," Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Boom! The kill formula was instantly activated. A monstrous, murderous intent transformed into a blood-red storm that roared in all directions. Roar! As soon as the killing intent appeared, it was like poking a hornet's nest. The ghost wolves standing on the giant peaks on both sides of the canyon immediately bared their fangs and pounced down, heading straight for Qin Feiyang. At a glance, there were no less than 100 of them. Each ghost wolf was 30 to 40 meters long. Its fur was like steel needles, sharp and threatening. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted from his nose and directly evolved the second move of the divine dragon art. Divine Dragon Roar! Roar! The purple-gold divine dragon roared toward the sky. Invisible sound waves surged in all directions. Boom! Crack! The giant peaks on both sides were shattered, dust and smoke covering the sky. However, the sound waves did not cause any destructive damage to the ghost wolves that pounced down. After all, Qin Feiyang's current cultivation had not been stacked yet. He was only a 5-star combat emperor. However, the sound waves left wounds on the bodies of the ghost wolves. Fresh blood flowed out continuously. It was all absorbed by the kill formula on Qin Feiyang's glabella. His aura was becoming stronger bit by bit. "Human, go to hell!" 3 ghost wolves were the first to pounce. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, looking extremely ferocious. Clang! Qin Feiyang took out the changshui without hesitation and threw it out casually. With a flash, a bloody hole immediately appeared in the glabella of 2 ghost wolves. Blood spurted out like a fountain. At the same time, the Scorpion Emperor raised his huge tail and slapped a ghost wolf away. "Boss, this won't do. There are too many of them. I'm afraid that before you can stack up your cultivation, we will have already died under their fangs." Just as the Scorpion Emperor spoke, more than a dozen ghost wolves pounced over. There were even more behind. Those dense pairs of green eyes made one's hair stand on end. Qin Feiyang's face was gloomy. Under the control of his mind, the changshui was invincible. One by one, the ghost wolves were either seriously injured or killed on the spot. But this could not solve the urgent situation at all. His eyes flashed and he shouted, "Ling Yunfei, bring Li Jian and the Crocodile Emperor out to help." Before he finished speaking, inside the ancient castle, Ling Yunfei, the Crocodile Emperor, and the other 2 beasts, as well as Li Jian, appeared out of thin air. Qin Feiyang also sensed it at the first moment and immediately pulled everyone out. But he did not call out Wolf King, Fatso, and the others. After all, their strength was too far apart from the ghost wolves. Even if they came out, they would not be of much help. Instead, they would drag everyone down. Seal of Nirvana, 9 Heavens, Ice Phoenix, Li Water Scripture. As soon as they appeared, Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and the Lady of the Dragon Phoenix House directly activated their divine arts and attacked one direction each. They were different from Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was only a 5-star combat emperor now, but they were 9-star combat emperors. Once the divine arts were activated, even if the ghost wolves' cultivation was higher than theirs, they could not withstand the divine arts attack. Accompanied by agonizing cries, the ghost wolves were killed one after another, and all the blood was absorbed by Qin Feiyang. Not a single drop was left. The crocodile emperor and the other 2 beasts also revealed their true forms. Together with Li Jian and Luo Qingzhu, they formed a circular line of defense on the periphery and fought the ghost wolves crazily. The Scorpion Emperor also joined the battle. Among the people present, only Qin Feiyang did not make a move. He was protected in the middle by everyone and stood upright. Fresh blood was rolling between his eyebrows. With the word kill as the center, it formed a blood-red vortex. His blood-red hair flew. Murderous intent filled the air. With the influx of fresh blood, his cultivation soared. 6-star combat emperor, 7-star combat emperor, 8-star combat emperor. Finally, his cultivation overlapped with that of a 9-star combat emperor. Follow me and kill. He finally made a move and activated the 4 moves of the Ruins of the End. More than 10 ghost wolves in front of him instantly turned into a bloody mist. He took the lead and killed his way into the pack of wolves. Ling Yunfei, the rest, and the Scorpion Emperor followed closely on his left and right sides. The group of people did not hold back at all. They were bathed in blood and fought to open a bloody path. Boom! Qin Feiyang's cultivation also soared once again, reaching the peak of the superposition realm. The peak realm cultivation, coupled with the battle character's secret art, armor, and various god secret arts, was simply invincible, leaving behind bloody corpses. Looking from afar, this piece of land was like an Azura hell, causing people to tremble in fear. Roar! Suddenly, an exceptionally loud wolf howl sounded in the depths of the mountains. It was deafening. The ghost wolves that were charging forward one after another all retreated in an instant and soon disappeared without a trace. The Scorpion Emperor said disdainfully, "I thought you were very powerful, but it turns out that you're just SOSO. Don't be careless," Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. At the same time that the ghost wolves retreated, an uneasy premonition arose in his heart. Boom! The group of people advanced for a distance in the canyon. But suddenly, streaks of world-destroying aura erupted. With a bang, the giant peaks on both sides of the canyon were instantly reduced to ashes. At that moment, Qin Feiyang and the rest were shocked. There were at least tens of thousands of ghost wolves gathered in all directions. Each ghost wolf's cultivation had reached the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. They formed a circle and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the rest. "Clansmen, kill!" Suddenly, a long howl sounded from a certain place, shaking the night sky. Qin Feiyang and the rest immediately looked towards the source of the sound and saw a silver-gray giant wolf standing proudly on a mountain peak. Its body was more than 1,000 feet long. Its fierce eyes, which seemed to be cast in gold, were filled with arrogance and disdain. It was like a king looking down at Qin Feiyang and the rest from afar. Not good. It's the Silver Wolf King, one of the rulers of the Ghost Wolves. His cultivation has reached the true peak realm. The Scorpion Emperor shouted. What's the peak realm? As long as he hasn't reached the false god realm. Killing him is like slaughtering a dog. Ling Yunfei said contemptuously. The Scorpion Emperor glanced at him and said, "Don't be careless. As far as I know, it seems to have mastered a god art." "What god art?" The eyes of Qin Feiyang and the rest trembled. Li Jian asked, "Wait, why do you say it seems? Can't you be sure?" "Yes, I can't be sure because I've never seen it use a god art." The Scorpion Emperor nodded. "Then how do you know?" Zhou Zhang was suspicious. The ghost wolves often come to my territory to cause trouble. Once I caught a few ghost wolves and interrogated them. The Scorpion Emperor said, "Damn, it seems that this is still a tough nut to crack." Ling Yunfei murmured. The Scorpion Emperor said, "Let's not talk about the Silver Wolf King first. Even if it's the other ghost wolves, they're not something we can fight head-on." Just as everyone was talking, the surrounding ghost wolves all surged with black battle chi. The battle chi surged and roared in the sky, turning into a huge wave that pounced towards Qin Feiyang's group from all directions. The numerous majestic mountain ridges and enormous peaks were like withered trees that couldn't withstand a single blow from the enormous waves, and they were shattered and transformed into nothingness. The earth was also shattering crazily. Even the void was twisting, as if it was about to crack. "Quick!" the Miss of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion shouted. The 4 moves of the Lee Water Sutra, Weak Water, Shocking Waves, Black Water, and Lee Water Thunder, were all evolved one by one. The others did not dare to hesitate and immediately activated their battle chi. Either they evolved the strongest battle art, or they evolved the strongest divine art. The Scorpion Emperor and the other 2 beasts also activated their battle souls. Qin Feiyang even mobilized the purple gold dragon chi, flaming battle chi, and scarlet sword chi at the same time. Fire Phoenix art, Eclipse Moon, Void returning art, even the perfect battle art, Guiyuan sword art, was evolved. For a moment, the entire area was enveloped in a vast divine aura. Ling Yunfei shouted, "Everyone guard one side, kill!" Chapter 1490. Boom! Crack! The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The void distorted. A series of deafening sounds resounded through the sky. Puff! Li Jian and Zhou Zhang were the first to be unable to hold on. They spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying. "Quick!" Ling Yunfei shouted. The 2 of them lost control, and a gap appeared. Black waves rolled over. Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. The divine dragon seal appeared out of nowhere, carrying a monstrous divine might as it filled the gap. But at the same time, the Scorpion Emperor and the other 2 beasts also lost control. They spat out blood and were sent flying, severely injured on the spot. Before Qin Feiyang could catch his breath, he quickly evolved the 2nd and 3rd moves of the divine dragon art to fill the 2 gaps. But there were too many ghost wolves, and it was still increasing. In just this short period of time, the number had reached more than 20,000. The black waves covered the sky and the earth. Even Ling Yunfei, Luo Qingzhu, and a young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could no longer hold on. The divine art was collapsing and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Qin Feiyang was not feeling well either. Li Jian and the other 2 beasts were injured and could no longer help share the burden. He could only rely on himself. Ling Yunfei spat out blood as he desperately resisted, roaring, "Boss, we can't go on like this. Quickly think of a way." Puff! Before he could finish his words, Luo Qingzhu and the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion also trembled. The 2 divine arts, 9 Heavens Ice Phoenix and Lee Water Scripture, disintegrated in an instant. That huge black wave seemed to have found a vent and surged over. A fatal crisis was rapidly approaching. Other than Qin Feiyang, everyone else was panicking. Especially Li Jian and Zhou Zhang, their eyes were filled with despair. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Although he could still continue to fight, he understood one thing even more. It was difficult to do it alone. Swish! He no longer hesitated. He immediately led everyone straight to the castle. Boom! As soon as they entered the castle, the divine arts outside dissipated one after another. The black waves crashed over, shattering the earth. Abyssal fissures spread out in all directions. Where is he? The wolves were in an uproar. Silver Wolf King, who was standing at the peak of the mountain, was also glaring at the place where Qin Feiyang and the others had disappeared. Divine spatial item. Suddenly, these 4 words burst out of its mouth. His eyes were filled with greed. Who would have thought that these humans actually had a spatial divine item in their hands? The Silver Wolf King cackled and ordered the wolves to continue surrounding the area, not giving Qin Feiyang and the others any chance to escape. Inside the castle, it's so easy to guess that we have a spatial divine object. This beast is too smart, Ling Yunfei said helplessly. That's not the point. The point is, how do we escape? Li Jian was deeply worried. Everyone lowered their heads in silence. Qin Feiyang suddenly smiled. He looked up at everyone and said, "Actually, it's not difficult to escape." He had heard of it. Everyone immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. The ghost wolf's innate ability can only be activated at night. And during the day, killing them is as easy as flipping one's hand. If they insist on pestering us, we can just travel during the day and cultivate in the castle at night. Qin Feiyang said, "That's right. In this way, they can't do anything to us. Even if the Silver Wolf King really has a divine art, he won't be a threat to us." Ling Yunfei said, "This is indeed a foolproof plan. However, this will delay a lot of time. The original 3-day and 3-night journey will probably take 6 or 7 days to get out of the White Bone Canyon." Scorpion King said. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, "As long as everyone is safe, it doesn't matter if it takes a little time. Now I'm only worried about the situation of Dan Wangkai and the others." Quickly sense the location of Dan Wangkai and the others. After these few days of traveling, I think we shouldn't be too far away from them now. Ling Yunfei said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, closed his eyes, and carefully sensed through the slave seal. Everyone also took a healing pill and began to heal their injuries. A moment later, Qin Feiyang suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 rays of light burst out of his eyes. "What's wrong?" Everyone looked at him in surprise. The pangolin, viper, winged snow eagle, and black dragon snake are still a little far away from us. But Dan Wangkai and Fire Qilin are actually right in front of us. It's about 2 days' journey. Qin Feiyang said, "What? Right in front? About 2 days' journey? They can't be at the water source, right?" Everyone was surprised, because the water source was right in front of the White Bone Canyon, and the distance was not much different. "That's what I think." Qin Feiyang nodded. Ling Yunfei said, "So, Dan Wangkai and Fire Qilin have already met up?" "I don't think so. There's still some distance between the 2 of them. One is in the east and the other is in the west." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Luo Qingzhu said, "Then sense again if they have moved." Qin Feiyang nodded and closed his eyes. 100 breaths passed. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and shook his head. "They haven't moved. If they haven't moved, it means that they might be hiding from vendetta or waiting for something. But we can basically confirm that the 2 of them are at the water source." Ling Yunfei said, "Hiding from vendetta." Fatso's eyes trembled, and he said, "Kid, don't scare us." Although Fire Qilin and Dan Wangcai's strength was not bad, one had to know that they were at the divine site. Many of the people who entered the divine site this time were 9-star combat emperors. For example, the main tower and the Great Qin Imperial Palace were all 9-star combat emperors, and there was no lack of peak super experts. With Fire Qilin and Dan Wangcai's cultivation, they could only be considered as the bottom characters at most. Ling Yunfei smiled and said, "I'm just guessing. Maybe they're hiding at the water source to cool off." "I'm not in the mood to joke with you." Fatso rolled his eyes at him. "No matter what, at least they're still alive. Hurry up and cultivate and recuperate." Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and waved his hand. An image appeared in the void in front of him. The image showed the scene of the ghost wolves outside. The wolf pack did not disperse. The Silver Wolf King was also there. He stood proudly at the top of the mountain like a king. After watching for a while, Qin Feiyang withdrew his gaze, turned around, and walked to the front of the altar to copy the 5th stroke of the Xing formula. Although it was only one night, according to the ancient castle's time rules, one night was equivalent to 5 days. He could not waste this time in vain. Time flew by. The next day, clear. 10 suns rose slowly. Qin Feiyang closed the 6-word formula, closed the iron box, and turned to look at the image. The wolf pack was still there, and the number was several times more than last night, but they had all fallen to their original cultivation level. Other than the Silver Wolf King, the strongest ghost wolf was the 9-star combat emperor. The Scorpion King jumped up and landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. Looking at the wolf pack in the image, he pursed his lips and said, "The ghost wolves above the 6-star combat emperor level should be almost all here." "They're all here." Qin Feiyang pondered and did not say anything. A plan emerged in his mind. "Let's kill them directly. They chased us desperately last night. Now it's time for us to hunt them down," Ling Yunfei said, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. The ghost wolves that had not activated their innate ability were no different from other beasts. Except for Fatso, Lu Hong, the Wolf King, and the Ghost Snake Emperor, all the people and beasts present could instantly kill a large number of them. Don't waste time. Since all the ghost wolves above the 6-star combat emperor level have come here to surround us, then the strongest ones in the other places are the 5-star combat emperor level ghost wolves. As long as we escape from this encirclement without anyone noticing, no one will be able to stop us. Qin Feiyang laughed. Ling Yunfei asked, "Then I want to ask you, how do you escape without anyone noticing?" Qin Feiyang grinned and activated the concealment art. His entire body, including the Scorpion King standing on his shoulder, instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. "So it's the concealment art." The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house shook her head and laughed. "I still have to thank you. You gave me the concealment art. In the past, this concealment art saved my life at critical moments." Qin Feiyang's laughter came out from the void. The young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house rolled her eyes and said, "I regret it now. Give it back to me." "That's where you're wrong. How can you give it away and ask for it back?" After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he left the ancient castle and appeared in the encirclement of the ghost wolves. However, the surrounding ghost wolves all turned a deaf ear to it. None of them could see Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King was amazed and sent a sound transmission. "Boss Qin, how many more tricks are you hiding that we don't know?" Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. "Other than the 3,000 incarnations and the 4th style of the divine dragon art, you guys know about all my tricks." 3,000 incarnations? The 4th style of the divine dragon art. The Scorpion King was stunned. The 3,000 incarnations were snatched from Zhuge Mingyang in the past. It can be considered my trump card, but now I haven't completely comprehended it. As for the 4th style of the divine dragon art, after saying this, Qin Feiyang fell silent. "What's wrong with the 4th style?" The Scorpion King sent a sound transmission. "This 4th style can't be used until the last moment." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Why? Is it so powerful that even you can't control it?" The Scorpion King was bewildered. Qin Feiyang secretly said, "The 4th style doesn't have any power at all. It's even useless to the current me." "How is that possible? The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd style of the divine dragon art are already so ridiculously strong, let alone the 4th style." The Scorpion King didn't believe it. "You'll understand in the future. I can only tell you that when I activate the 4th style of the divine dragon art, it will be the time of my death." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, then took a step forward and quietly walked towards the wolf pack. "Die in the Yellow Springs. So serious. The Scorpion King was secretly shocked. However, he didn't ask any further. Not long later, Qin Feiyang escaped from the encirclement of the ghost wolves without anyone noticing. Then, without any hesitation, he ran along the canyon. Along the way, he also encountered many ghost wolves. However, their cultivation did not surpass the 6-star War Emperor. Qin Feiyang did not provoke them either. An hour passed very quickly. Once the time limit of the concealment art was up, Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion King were immediately exposed. Chapter 1491. As soon as Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion King appeared, the ghost wolves around the canyon immediately noticed them. Roar! A group of 5-star combat Emperor ghost wolves immediately bared their white fangs and pounced towards them. Scram! The Scorpion King glared angrily as a terrifying aura erupted. At that moment, the group of ghost wolves turned around and fled in fear. It's the Scorpion King. And that human. Weren't they surrounded by Lord Silver Wolf King? Why are they here? The other ghost wolves around were also extremely surprised and bewildered. One of the ghost wolves roared, "Quickly inform Lord Silver Wolf King. You're courting death." The Scorpion King's eyes surged with killing intent. Ignore them. Even if they run to inform the Silver Wolf King now, the Silver Wolf King won't be able to catch up with us. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and strode forward, quickly disappearing at the end of the canyon. The Silver Wolf King's cultivation was at the peak realm, and Qin Feiyang's cultivation was also at the peak realm. Moreover, he still had the perfect auxiliary technique, phantom steps, so there was no need to worry at all. Roar! After Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion King left, wolf howls continuously sounded in the canyon. The ghost wolves were also smart. They didn't run to inform the Silver Wolf King. Instead, they used this special voice transmission method to convey to the Silver Wolf King layer by layer. It was both fast and effortless. About half an hour passed. The news finally reached the Silver Wolf King. What? He actually escaped? Then what are we still waiting here for? Bastard, how dare you fool me? Chase after him. The Silver Wolf King was furious. He immediately led tens of thousands of ghost wolves and chased after Qin Feiyang. However, after passing on the message for less than an hour, Qin Feiyang had once again pulled a long distance away. How could they possibly catch up to him? Time flew by. Night fell once again. A 9-star combat Emperor Ghost Wolf ran in front of the Silver Wolf King and said in a deep voice, "My lord, that human is too fast. We can't catch up with him at all." "I don't care. Spread the news immediately. Even if you have to self-destruct, you must stop him for this king." Silver Wolf King said harshly. Understood. The ghost wolf nodded and let out a howl that shook the sky. Following closely, in the distance, a series of howls could be heard. At this very moment, Qin Feiyang was still running madly in the canyon. The Scorpion Emperor was napping on his shoulder, because along the way, not a single ghost wolf dared to run out and block the way. There was no place for it to use. Gradually, a strange giant peak came into Qin Feiyang's sight. The gigantic mountain towered into the sky. It was pitch black and sat on the left side of the canyon. It looked like a wolf. Qin Feiyang looked at the giant peak curiously and said, "Scorpion Emperor, what do you think that is?" The Scorpion Emperor opened his eyes and looked up. He pursed his lips and said, "That is the Silver Wolf King's lair. So it's like that." Qin Feiyang nodded his head in realization and said, "Oh right, I heard you say last night that the Silver Wolf King is one of the rulers of the ghost wolves. Other than the Silver Wolf King, who else is there?" "There's also the Golden Wolf King. But don't worry, that guy is the same as the little crocodile. He usually stays at the water source." The Scorpion Emperor said. Qin Feiyang said, "So the divine artifact is also on him?" "Yes." The Scorpion Emperor nodded. What divine artifact? Have you seen it before? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. It's a divine bow. It has the power to destroy everything. I remember that more than 500 years ago, the Golden Wolf King fought with the little crocodile. That divine bow and the little crocodile's armor were almost on par. The Scorpion Emperor said, Divine bow. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. When he got this divine bow, plus the armor and the 10,000 beasts diagram, he would have 3 divine artifacts. As for Chang Shui and the castle, it was a different story. Wait. Suddenly, the Scorpion Emperor seemed to have thought of something and shouted. Qin Feiyang braked and asked in surprise, What's wrong? The Scorpion Emperor said, Last time I caught a few ghost wolves, I heard them say that there seemed to be a lot of treasures in the Silver Wolf King's lair, which were all plundered from various places in the past. Really? Qin Feiyang asked. The Scorpion Emperor looked up at the giant peak and shook his head. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but those ghost wolves shouldn't lie to me. Since that's the case, let's go up and take a look. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he ran to the front of the giant peak. Like an agile ape, he grabbed onto rocks and quickly climbed up the mountain. When he was halfway up the mountain, the Scorpion Emperor's pupils constricted as he sent a sound transmission. There seems to be a ghost wolf up there. It doesn't matter. Qin Feiyang laughed coldly. Not long later, he climbed over a rock and climbed to the top of the mountain. Above, there were many rocks. More than a dozen ghost wolves were patrolling the top of the mountain like guards. Moreover, they all had the cultivation of a 9-star war emperor. The dozen or so ghost wolves also discovered Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion Emperor at the first moment. They immediately activated their innate ability, and their cultivation soared crazily. Die. Qin Feiyang's gaze turned cold as he activated the phantom steps. Like a ghost, he flashed again and again. In less than 3 breaths, it was a dozen or so ghost wolves. With a wail, they fell to the ground and died. There was a fist-sized bloody hole between their eyebrows. Then, Qin Feiyang did not delay at all and began to search the top of the mountain. Not long after, he found a dark cave entrance beside a pile of rocks in the middle of the mountain peak. A flaming battle chi swept into the cave, illuminating all directions. Immediately, a huge grotto appeared in front of Qin Feiyang's line of sight. The grotto was 34 meters deep and had a diameter of more than 20 meters. Inside, there were countless gold coins, medicinal herbs, pills, and so on. How could there be so many treasures? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It's normal. There are quite a few treasures in the miracle. If we're lucky and find a big treasure, it's enough for us to squander for the rest of our lives. However, this kind of treasure can only be found by chance and not sought. To be honest, the number of treasures here also shocked me. I didn't expect that the Silver Wolf King had actually plundered so much over the years. But now it's all ours. The Scorpion Emperor laughed complacently. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said speechlessly, So you're also a miser? Who doesn't want treasures? Even if it's useless, piling it up here, it's golden and beautiful. The Scorpion Emperor chuckled. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and took out a few empty Qinquan bags, ready to put them all in. But suddenly, he noticed that in the pile of gold coins there was a half-meter wide iron box, which was rusty and had obviously been there for many years. He entered the grotto with a suspicious face, landed in front of the iron box, and carefully opened it. Immediately, he was dumbfounded. The Scorpion Emperor was also dumbfounded. Inside, there was a box full of jade scrolls. Don't tell me they're all divine arts, the Scorpion Emperor murmured. Qin Feiyang came back to his senses, grabbed a jade scroll, and said with a smile, If it's a divine art, these jade scrolls will have some divine power, but now there's no divine power at all, which means that these are just battle arts. While speaking, he sank his mind into the jade scroll and was slightly stunned. Then he immediately grabbed another jade scroll and checked it again, and was stunned again. "What's wrong?" The Scorpion Emperor was puzzled. "The 2 jade scrolls in my hand are both perfect battle arts. Don't tell me that this whole box of jade scrolls are all perfect battle arts." Qin Feiyang swallowed his saliva. If that was the case, this box of jade scrolls was equivalent to a big treasure, because, even in the capital and the central divine kingdom, perfect battle arts were rare, and any one of them could be auctioned for a sky-high price. And in this box there were at least 50 or 60 jade scrolls. How much were they worth? Thinking of this, he hurriedly sent the iron box to the castle and let Ling Yunfei and the others check it carefully. Then, he put all the treasures in the grotto into his Qingquan bag and then sent it to the castle for Fatso and the others to count. The Scorpion Emperor smiled flatteringly. "Boss, if there's a perfect battle art suitable for me to cultivate, remember to give it to me. I don't have a goal. If you follow me, you must at least have a divine art, understand?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and flew out of the grotto. Divine art? The Scorpion Emperor was stunned and smiled bitterly. "How would I dare to think about such a divine item?" "You have no ambition." Qin Feiyang shook his head, walked to the top of the mountain, glanced at the surrounding mountains and rivers, and then jumped down, landing in the canyon with a bang, and continued to rush forward. Damn it! They actually looted Lord Silver Wolf King's treasure. After Qin Feiyang left, a few ghost wolves climbed to the top of the mountain. When they saw the empty grotto, they were immediately furious and roared towards the sky. This news was passed to the Silver Wolf King's ears layer by layer. After learning about this, the Silver Wolf King was so angry that he vomited blood and almost fainted. But for this, Qin Feiyang was completely unaware. Even if he knew, he wouldn't sympathize. He would only sprinkle a few more handfuls of salt on the Silver Wolf King's body and make it more painful. Midnight, the Silver Wolf King's news finally came. Roar! A group of ghost wolves activated their innate ability and surrounded Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion Emperor. Some ghost wolves even self-destructed their bodies in an attempt to stop Qin Feiyang, but it was all in vain, activating the battle word art and armor. They passed through as if there was no one around, leaving corpses and blood all over the ground, because their cultivation was too weak. Even if they activated their innate ability, the strongest was only a 9-star war emperor. Occasionally, a peak realm ghost wolf would jump out, but they were all easily dealt with by Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion Emperor. After daybreak, the ghost wolves finally retreated. Even if they activated their innate ability at night, they couldn't stop Qin Feiyang's footsteps, let alone during the day. The results in the ancient castle were also out. As he expected, the jade slips in the box were all perfect battle arts. According to Ling Yunfei's voice transmission, there were a total of 56 jade slips. Among them, 45 perfect killing battle arts. The remaining 11 jade slips were all perfect auxiliary battle arts. As for medicinal herbs, there were also many rare medicinal herbs like the purple spirit flower, which could be said to be a bountiful harvest. Qin Feiyang also finally understood why the mysterious madam had so many perfect battle arts. This miracle was indeed worthy of its reputation. There were opportunities everywhere, and it depended on whether one was lucky enough to find them or whether one had the ability to obtain them. As for the gold coins, Fatso and the others were too lazy to count them, because for them, gold coins were no longer tempting. It was just a number. The Scorpion Emperor looked up at the 10 suns rising from the horizon and said, "Boss, are you tired? If you're tired, go to the castle to rest. I'll take you on the road." Chapter 1492. It's okay. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, thought for a while, and said, "We have been on the road for 2 days and 2 nights. No, it's 2 days and 1 night. On the first night, we were cultivating in the castle. Scorpion King said, 2 days and 1 night. It will take 3 days and 3 nights to cross the entire canyon. In other words, we will need another day and 2 nights for the rest of the journey. Qin Feiyong asked. Yes. Scorpion King nodded and asked suspiciously, Why do you ask? Silver Wolf King is now left behind. We can also speed up. I have the perfect auxiliary technique, Phantom Steps, which can increase my speed by 4 times. At most, I will need another 4 to 5 hours to cross the White Bone Canyon. Qin Feiyong said. That's good. Scorpion King nodded repeatedly. Although the ghost wolves above 6-star Combat Emperor were left behind, it still couldn't help but feel guilty when night fell. Because the ghost wolves at night were too crazy, they didn't care about their lives at all. As long as Qin Feiyong activated Phantom Steps, he would be able to leave the White Bone Canyon before nightfall. At that time, he wouldn't have to worry about the ghost wolves. Whoosh! Without hesitation, Qin Feiyong immediately activated Phantom Steps, leaving behind afterimages, and disappeared at the end of the canyon like lightning. Along the way, not a single ghost wolf could stop him. At the same time, outside the canyon, there was a vast plain. On the plain, weeds grew, reaching the height of an adult. Ancient trees towered into the sky, and vines coiled around like dragons, full of vitality. After passing through the plain, there was an endless mountain range. Within the mountain, numerous towering peaks stood tall, exuding a majestic aura that shook one's heart. At this moment, 2 figures were hiding in a patch of weeds on top of an inconspicuous hill. They poked their heads out and stared at the ground below. It was a man and a woman. The man was middle-aged and had a burly body. His pair of dark eyes were like an eagle's, revealing a shocking sharpness. This person was none other than Dan Wangkai. However, it was Dan Wangkai in disguise. Even if Qin Feiyong were here, he wouldn't be able to recognize it. As for the woman lying beside Dan Wangkai, she was in her 20s. She had a graceful figure and a beautiful face. Her fine black hair was like a waterfall. Her hair emitted a faint fragrance. Her bright eyes were as bright as gems. However, her gaze was extremely cold, like the edge of a blade piercing one's heart. However, within the coldness, there would occasionally be a hint of charm that tugged at one's heartstrings. Anyway, she was a beautiful woman who was both likable and frightening. If Qin Feiyong was here, he would definitely recognize her at a glance. She was Wang Su's granddaughter, Wang Yu-er. At this very moment, the 2 of them held their breaths and looked at the foot of the mountain. Below them was a valley. It wasn't big. It was about 1,000 feet long. In the valley, there was a 2 to 3 meter wide stream. The stream was so clear that one could see the bottom as it flowed. And in the grass beside the stream, there was a 1 meter long golden wolf lying on its stomach. Its entire body was covered in reddish gold fur, as if it was cast from gold leaf. It shone with a dazzling light under the sun, looking quite handsome. It was like a poisonous snake, hiding its aura in the grass and taking a nap with its eyes closed. However, its cultivation was extremely strong. It was at the peak of a 9-star Combat Emperor. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that half a meter away from the golden wolf, there was a big tree as thick as a bucket. The tree trunk was strong and upright, and on the tree there were palm-sized fruits. The shape of those fruits was particularly strange. They were like newborn babies. Spiritual infant fruit, the most important medicinal ingredient for the spirit congealing pill. And the spirit congealing pill had the effect of condensing one's soul. Moreover, on the big tree beside the golden wolf, there were more than 20 spiritual infant fruits. I really didn't expect to encounter such a big spiritual infant tree. Dan Wangkai transmitted his voice, his eyes glowing green. For him, who valued alchemy as his life, nothing was more tempting than medicinal herbs. Wang Yu glanced at Dan Wangkai and said to herself, "The spiritual infant fruit is hard to come by in 10,000 years. Although it is a treasure, with that golden wolf here, we can only watch." Dan Wonkai looked at the golden wolf with his brows tightly knitted together. The Wolf King, who was at the peak of a 9-star combat emperor, was not someone he and Wang Yu'er could deal with. What should he do? Was he going to miss it just like that? He was unwilling. Wang Yu'er's eyes flashed slightly, and she said calmly, "Didn't you say that Qin Feiyang can sense your location through the slave seal?" Yes, Dan Wonkai nodded. "In that case, we'll wait here for Qin Feiyang to come and find you. I think with Qin Feiyang's methods, it should be easy to deal with this golden wolf." Wang Yu'er suggested. Dan Wonkai was stunned. He turned to look at Wang Yu'er and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean by we? Are you going to keep waiting with me?" "Of course. More people to look after." "Wait, don't tell me you're going to kick me to the curb after I've outlived my usefulness. Don't forget that I'm your savior. Besides, the divine sight is so dangerous. How can you bear to let a woman like me walk alone?" Wang Yu'er snorted. "How is that possible? A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. But from what you're saying, you're planning to wait for the young master to come and walk with us." Dan Wonkai said to himself, "Am I not welcome?" Wang Yu'er said, "Of course you're welcome." Dan Wonkai smiled and hesitated. But what?" Wang Yu'er was suspicious. "Miss Yu'er, don't blame me for being too blunt. We know about the feud between you and the young master. Logically speaking, given your character, you should keep a distance from the young master. But now you're planning to walk with us. This makes me suspect that you have ulterior motives." Dan Wonkai said to himself, "I really admire your imagination. Yes, I hate Qin Feiyang. But I also know that given my strength, I won't be able to walk far in the divine sight alone. So, I need someone to protect me." Wang Yu'er said expressionlessly. Dan Wonkai said in surprise, "Let the young master protect you? This is not like you, Wang Yu'er." "Then, what kind of character do you think I have? Qin Feiyang owes me so much. Shouldn't he protect me?" Wang Yu'er said angrily. Dan Wonkai smiled embarrassedly. Should he protect Wang Yu'er? He really couldn't answer this question. "You'll have to pay the debt you owe." Wang Yu'er snorted and said, "By the way, we've been together for a few days. You only said that you're Qin Feiyang's subordinate, but you haven't told me your name. What's your name?" Dan Wonkai narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "I'm just a nobody. I'm not worth mentioning. To be able to be valued by Qin Feiyang and be taken under his command, how could he be a nobody? Just tell me if you don't want to tell me. Why bother making excuses?" Wang Yu'er sneered. Dan Wonkai smiled helplessly and turned to stare at the divine infant tree and the golden wolf. Wang Yu'er raised her eyebrows and didn't ask further. At the same time, on the other side, a crimson, ferocious beast was hiding behind a bush, also staring at the valley. It was the fire Qilin, but at this moment it had restrained its energy and the flames on its body and shrunk its body to the size of a palm. No one knew of its existence. Even Dan Wonkai and Wang Yu'er didn't know. Similarly, the fire Qilin didn't notice Dan Wonkai and Wang Yu'er hiding opposite. Rustle. Suddenly, footsteps sounded at the entrance of the valley. "Someone's here?" The fire Qilin and Dan Wonkai immediately looked at the entrance. The golden wolf's ears twitched slightly, but it didn't open its eyes. The footsteps became more and more obvious. Finally, 3 men and 2 women entered the valley. The 5 of them were middle-aged and looked vigilant. They were all 9-star combat emperors, but the 5 of them were dressed differently. 2 of them, and one of them was dressed in black with a flame symbol on their chest. The other man and woman were also dressed in black, but the insignia on their chests was a sword, and there was also a ferocious skull on the sword. 3 oracles and 2 enforcers. Why are they together? Dan Wonkai frowned. The oracles belonged to the Forgotten Continent, The enforcers belonged to the divine palace of the Great Qin Empire. Weren't the two forces enemies? Dan Wonkai didn't know that the divine palace and the Great Qin Empire had joined forces. So he looked at the five of them suspiciously. The five of them entered the valley and immediately discovered the spiritual infant tree. They were excited. They had encountered such a treasure. The five of them immediately ran toward the spiritual infant tree. Because they were too excited, the golden wolf had concealed its aura, and the surrounding grass was too dense to see the golden wolf. They hadn't discovered it yet. How dare you lay your hands on my spiritual infant tree? You must be tired of living. When King of Elixir saw this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He turned his head and glanced at Wang Yuer. He sent a sound transmission to Wang Yuer. There are 3 divine envoys from your head tower. Don't you want to remind them? A bunch of careless idiots. They deserve to die. I don't want to expose our whereabouts by reminding them. Wang Yuer snorted. How cruel. Dan Wonkai murmured. The fire Qilins' eyes also flashed. Inside the valley, the 5 of them were very excited. They all activated their auxiliary battle techniques and ran toward the spiritual infant tree, afraid that they would be too slow. Although the golden wolf didn't move, its ears were trembling slightly. Seeing this, the fire Qilin and Dan Wonkai held their breaths. The golden wolf was like a poisonous snake that was hiding in the grass and slowly revealing its fangs. The 5 of them were like food that was being offered to the golden wolf. Wait. However, just as the 5 of them were about to reach the spiritual infant tree, a middle-aged woman suddenly stopped the other 4. What? The 4 of them raised their eyebrows and looked at her with dissatisfaction. There's danger ahead. The middle-aged woman scanned the grass and said in a low voice, Danger? The 4 of them were stunned and looked carefully. Awoo! At this moment, the golden wolf roared and jumped out of the grass. Its body instantly grew from 1 meter to 50 to 60 meters tall, like a mountain. It opened its mouth and bared its fangs as it pounced toward the 5 of them. A pair of millstone-sized eyes flashed with a frightening, ferocious light. This, Wolf King at the peak of the 9-star combat emperor realm. Run. Chapter 1493. But the golden wolf was too fast. The 3 divine envoys from the main pagoda screamed miserably as their bodies were bitten off by the golden wolf and swallowed. Seeing this, the 2 law enforcers from the temple were so scared that they wet their pants. Their faces were deathly pale. How dare you barge into my territory? You don't know what's good for you. The golden wolf laughed, and its anger was monstrous. After swallowing the 3 divine envoys, it immediately pounced on the 2 enforcers. The 2 enforcers panicked and quickly used their battle arts to attack the golden wolf. The middle-aged man's battle art was a giant golden sword that exuded a sharp aura that could destroy the world. The woman's battle art was a giant python that bared its fangs and brandished its claws. But the golden wolf was not afraid. Roar! Accompanied by an earth-shattering beast roar, a golden light soared into the sky from its back. In the next moment, a golden beast shadow appeared above the golden wolf's head. It was also the shadow of a wolf. It was extremely huge and occupied the entire sky above the valley. Its ferocious aura shook the heavens and earth. This was the golden wolf's fighting soul. Roar! The fighting soul roared in the sky, and its 2 thick claws swung out. It actually tore the battle skills that the man and woman had conjured into pieces. So powerful, the 2 enforcers were pale. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped and looked at the woman. Quickly inform Elder Gua and the others. What about you? The woman asked. The middle-aged man said, I'll try my best to restrain it. Okay, the woman nodded. But just as she turned and was about to leave, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed fiercely. He grabbed the woman's arm and threw her toward the golden wolf. The woman did not expect the middle-aged man to do this. She was not prepared at all. Do you really think I'll be so kind as to stall the golden wolf and let you ask for help? I'm just saying this to make you let down your guard. This way, it'll be easier for me to attack. The middle-aged man looked at the woman sarcastically and turned into a stream of light. He rushed out of the valley and into the forest outside. Bastard, you'll die a horrible death. The woman stared at the middle-aged man's back and roared. It's impossible for me to die, but don't worry, after I inform Old Gua, I will avenge you. The middle-aged man smiled coldly and disappeared into the forest without looking back. The woman's eyes were filled with hatred, but suddenly, behind him, a deadly sense of danger came. She quivered and hurriedly turned her head to look. She was instantly horrified. The fighting soul of the golden wolf had already pounced behind her and was less than 10 meters away. His ferocious might covered the sky and covered the earth. A deep sense of despair rose in the woman's heart as she roared, "Bastard, I'll die with you!" Boom! She self-detonated her body without hesitation. A wave of chi that could destroy the world instantly spread out in the valley like a flood. Seeing this, the fire Qilin, Dan Wankai, and Wang Yuer turned and ran. What a joke! This was the self-destruction of a 9-star battle emperor. How terrifying was its destructive power! With their cultivation bases, they could not withstand it at all. At the same time, the golden wolf's pupils constricted as well. He quickly turned around and dashed in front of the divine infantry. Boom! Waves of battle aura rolled out, and a barrier appeared in an instant, protecting the nascent soul tree. Rumble! Crack! Almost in the next moment, accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the valley was instantly reduced to ashes. That destructive wave of air rushed out in all directions, toppling mountains and overturning seas. In an instant, the mountains were like wheat fields that were swept away by a strong wind, and they kept collapsing. The ground was also shaking violently and cracking crazily. Even 1,000 miles away was affected. From afar, the scene looked as if the end of the world had arrived. The fire Qilin and Dan Wankai were desperately running for their lives, and blood kept flowing out of their mouths. The chi wave was too terrifying. Even though they had run away immediately, they still suffered heavy injuries that could not be erased. Fortunately, they did not lose their lives. That was close. After escaping, Wang Yuer wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and took a healing pill. She turned around and looked at the devastated ground, her face full of fear. Yes, if we were one step later, we would have died. I wonder how the golden wolf is now. Dan Wankai said, his eyes full of worry. He was not worried about the golden wolf, but the spiritual infantry. The spiritual infantry was a treasure of heaven and earth, not to mention such a thick spiritual infantry. It would be a pity if it was destroyed. Do you even need to ask? Although the golden wolf was at the peak state, the power of a 9-star combat emperor's self-destruction was enough to kill a peak state super expert. I think it must have turned into ashes along with the spiritual infantry. Wang Yuer said coldly. Dan Wankai frowned and suddenly turned into a stream of light, returning the way he came. What are you doing? Wang Yuer grabbed his arm. Dan Wankai said in a low voice, let go. I want to see if the spiritual infantry is still there. Are you crazy? Although the explosion has passed, the aftershock is still there. Just this remnant might alone is enough to kill you 1,000 times over and crush your bones. Wang Yuer shouted. But Dan Wankai was unwilling to give up. Wang Yuer said, wait for the aftershock to dissipate. Don't die for nothing. All right. Dan Wankai nodded and looked at Wang Yuer with a smile. Thank you. If you didn't stop me, I would have run over by now. You saved my life again. It's nothing. Wang Yuer waved her hand, but there was a glint in her eyes. Wait. Suddenly, Dan Wang Kai's eyes flickered as he looked at the center of the explosion. His eyes were filled with bewilderment as he shouted, "Quickly sense it. Is there a strand of godly aura? Divine power." Wang Yuer was shocked. She immediately calmed down and sensed it carefully. "Soon," she said in disbelief, "there really is divine power, and it's coming from the spiritual infant tree. Is there a divine artifact hidden there?" "A divine artifact." Dan Wangsai's eyes lit up. On the other side, the fire Qilin stood on top of a giant mountain and looked at the center of the explosion with a hint of shock in its eyes. Obviously, it had also sensed the divine power. However, neither the fire Qilin nor Dan Wangkai ran back rashly. They waited quietly. Soon, they sensed that the divine power had disappeared again, as if it had never appeared. Time flew by and half an hour passed. The aftershock had not dissipated and was still surging in the sky. Although an hour had passed and the remaining power had weakened significantly, if a battle saint were to enter this place, they would still die without a doubt. However, it was no longer a threat to Dan Wangkai and the Fire Qilin. After all, they were all battle emperors. The two of them and the beast hid their auras and began to approach the spiritual infantry. Nothing happened along the way. It was very smooth. However, because the mountains had collapsed and their vision had widened, the two of them and the beast were extra careful. After a while, the two of them and the beast finally approached the spiritual infantry. They lay in a ditch and behind a pile of rocks and looked up. "What? It's not dead." Immediately, their expressions changed. The valley had disappeared and was in pieces. However, the spiritual infant tree was not damaged at all. The golden wolf was lying under the spiritual infant tree. There were few wounds on its body, but they were not serious and had already formed scabs. The self-destruction of a 9-star battle emperor only caused such little damage to it? The two of them and the beast could not believe it. "Isn't this too ridiculous?" Wang Yu said telepathically, "Do you think the divine might from before was a divine artifact?" Dan Wangkai was stunned and said, "Do you mean that the golden wolf is hiding a divine artifact? That divine artifact was protecting it and the spiritual infant tree?" Wang Yuer said, "How else can we explain all this?" Dan Wangkai thought for a while and sighed. "If that's the case, I'm afraid that even the young master can't do anything to the golden wolf." "Not necessarily. The castle in Changshui is full of divine artifacts. In terms of numbers, Qin Feiyang has the advantage." Wang Yuer said, "That makes sense." Dan Wangkai thought for a while and said with a smile, "Then let's stay here and wait for the young master to come to us." "Okay." Wang Yuer nodded, but suddenly, Wang Yuer's pupils shrank and she looked to the left. "What's wrong?" Dan Wangkai was surprised. "Sure." Wang Yuer made a gesture to keep quiet. Her eyes were extremely solemn. Dan Wangkai also looked over. His expression changed slightly and his nerves immediately tensed up. From the left, a group of people were rushing over in an imposing manner. The leader was the middle-aged man who had escaped before. Behind him, there were at least 30 to 40 people. There were old and young. There were men and women. There were law enforcers from the temple. There were also oracles from the main tower, and their cultivation was all 9-star battle emperors. There were even 15 peak-level super experts among them. "They've joined forces again. Could it be that your main tower has secretly formed an alliance with the national master and Emperor Hong?" Dan Wangkai turned to look at Wang Yuer and said in a deep voice, "Even if there is an alliance, it's a matter between the higher-ups. How would a small fry like me know?" Wang Yuer's expression did not change, and her tone was very calm. Dan Wangkai looked at Wang Yuer deeply. His eyes flashed, and he continued to look at the group of people. 15 peak-level super experts and more than 29-star battle emperors. Such a lineup was really shocking. "Young master, come quickly. Otherwise, the spiritual infant tree will fall into their hands." Chapter 1494. At the same time, the golden wolf also sensed the aura of a group of people. It opened its eyes, and two rays of ferocious light shot out. Seeing the golden wolf looking in his direction, the middle-aged man who had escaped earlier shrank his neck, and his face was full of fear. He hid behind a white-haired old man and stared at the golden wolf with resentment. He whispered, "Elder Gua, that's him." Although the white-haired old man was old and his face was full of wrinkles, his body was as straight as a sword, and he exuded a threatening aura. Especially his eyes, they were bright and full of expression, as sharp as the edge of a blade. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the white-haired old man stopped and looked up at the golden wolf. The golden wolf turned its gaze and looked at the white-haired old man. The moment their gazes collided in the void, a murderous aura suddenly appeared. "Why did you hurt my companions?" The white-haired old man spoke in an extremely cold tone. "They broke into my territory and touched the divine infantry. Shouldn't they be killed? Even if it's you, old bastard, who dares to touch the divine infantry, I will kill you without hesitation." The golden wolf slowly stood up. The white-haired old man was strong enough. However, its attitude and tone were even stronger than the white-haired old man's. It did not take the old man seriously at all. The white-haired old man glanced at the divine infant tree behind the golden wolf, and his eyes were full of greed. Boom! He did not say anything else and spoke with his actions. A terrifying emperor aura appeared and swept across the sky like an invisible torrent, rushing toward the golden wolf. "You'd better put away your arrogance in front of me." The golden wolf smiled coldly, and his battle chi rolled out to protect the divine infantry. Then, the peak 9-star combat emperor aura erupted like a volcano and collided with the white-haired old man's emperor aura. Seeing this, an old man in black hurriedly said, 9-star combat emperors, retreat!" Hearing this, the 29-star combat emperors, including the middle-aged man, quickly retreated. Boom! Just as everyone retreated, the emperor aura and the ferocious emperor aura collided. In an instant, the sky changed color and the wind howled. The earth trembled as if there was a huge earthquake, and the abyss quickly spread out. Puff! The white-haired old man and the golden wolf spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time, and both were forced 3 steps back. The white-haired old man in white raised his wrinkled, eagle-claw-like hand and touched the blood on his fingertips. His eyes became colder. Suddenly, he looked up at the golden wolf and said, "You can actually compete with me. You're really not simple. You are flattering me." The golden wolf snickered and pointed at the middle-aged man. Compared to him, this king is indeed much stronger. The old man in white was stunned. He turned around and looked at the middle-aged man. Then he looked at the golden wolf suspiciously and asked, "What do you mean?" The golden wolf sneered. "No matter how cruel this emperor is, at least this king will not betray his own companions." The old man in white raised his eyebrows and turned to look at the middle-aged man again. Being stared at by so many eyes, the middle-aged man couldn't help but panic, because he knew what the golden wolf was going to say. The middle-aged man rolled his eyes and looked at the white-haired old man. "Old Gua, don't listen to that beast's nonsense." "Nonsense? Who was the one who killed his companion not long ago?" The golden wolf laughed. "What do you mean? Speak clearly." Old Gua stared at the golden wolf and shouted. In the distance, Dan Wonkai murmured, "This beast is smart. It knows how to sow discord. Which dire beast of this level would be an idiot?" Wang Yuer whispered, "Yes, some people are worse than beasts." Dan Wonkai laughed. Wang Yuer glanced at Dan Wonkai and said, "Don't be so sarcastic. Although some of them are from my main pagoda, they have nothing to do with me. A woman's heart is the most vicious." Dan Wonkai sighed secretly. She didn't even care when her companion was in trouble. Why didn't he notice before that this woman was so ruthless? Could it be because young master had hurt her last time, causing her personality to change drastically? From a goddess that everyone loved to a demoness? Speak clearly? Okay, I'll make it clear to you. The golden wolf pointed at the middle-aged man, his eyes full of disdain. He used lies to confuse his companions and used his companions' bodies as meat shields to create an opportunity for himself to escape. Otherwise, do you think he could escape from me with his pitiful strength? Is what he said true? The white-haired old man immediately turned and stared at the middle-aged man. No, I didn't do it. It's lying. Please believe in me. The middle-aged man shook his head and roared. Sigh, I really feel sorry for that woman. She trusted you so much, but you plotted against her behind her back. Humans, as expected, are all sanctimonious villains. The golden wolf shook its head and sighed. The middle-aged man was furious. He roared at the golden wolf. Beast, are you done? I'm just telling the truth. To be honest, I quite admire you. You're ruthless. However, aren't you afraid that her soul will come after you? The golden wolf said. She wouldn't dare. The middle-aged man roared in exasperation. However, as soon as he said that, his expression changed slightly. Wasn't that equivalent to confessing without being pressed? He quickly looked at the white-haired old man and found that the white-haired old man's expression had changed. There was a hint of murderous intent in his old eyes. He looked at the others. The others were also staring at him angrily. The middle-aged man's body suddenly turned cold. He looked at the smug golden wolf and roared. Bastard, you schemed against me. So what if I schemed against you? The golden wolf sneered and looked at the white-haired old man. Actually, the other three were killed by him. What? The white-haired old man's eyes trembled. He immediately looked at the middle-aged man and shouted, You should be punished for murdering your companion. I really didn't, the middle-aged man said anxiously. Why are you talking nonsense with this kind of scum? The old man in black, who had told everyone to retreat, snorted from his nose. He was also a super expert at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm. Schwa. He stepped on the perfect auxiliary battle technique and rushed in front of the middle-aged man. Without saying a word, he raised his big hand and slapped the middle-aged man's head. Battle chi surged in his palm. A shocking killing intent drowned the middle-aged man. No! The middle-aged man knelt on the ground and begged. However, the old man in black had no intention of stopping. His eyes were as cold as the god of death. Seeing this, the middle-aged man immediately laughed angrily. His eyes flashed with incomparable madness. You bastards, if you don't let me live, I won't let you have it easy either. He roared. A destructive aura rushed out from his body. In the next moment, his physical body exploded in the void. Self-destruct. The old man in black's expression changed, and he roared, Run! The group of people turned around and fled, including the white-haired old man. They did not expect the middle-aged man to self-destruct his physical body. Are you kidding me? Again? Fire Qilin, Dan Wangkai, and Wang Yuer also changed their expressions and fled with all their might. Boom! Crack! Ah! Destructive airwaves roared in all directions. The old man in black and his group were the first to bear the brunt. The 20-odd 9-star War Emperors were swallowed by the airwaves one after another. Without any suspense, their blood splattered on the spot. In the end, not even a strand of hair was left. Only desperate screams were left, echoing between heaven and earth and lingering for a long time. Damn it! The old man in black and a group of super experts at the peak of the 9-star War Emperor realm all roared angrily. Although their cultivation had reached the peak, the middle-aged man's self-destruction was too sudden. They did not have time to evacuate at all. The airwaves covered the sky and earth, destroying everything. The group of people was so anxious that they were about to explode. Beside the spiritual infantry, the golden wolf stood proudly on the ground and looked at this scene coldly. In the void above its head, a big golden bough had appeared out of nowhere. The big bough looked as if it was made of gold. Rays of divine light fell down, protecting the golden wolf and the spiritual infantry. That surging wave of air was actually completely blocked outside. That divine power has appeared again. Dan Wangkai, who was fleeing, was shocked. Wang Yuer was also energized. On the other side, Fire Qilint's eyes were also shining brightly. However, the two men and the beast did not dare to look back. Of course, they could not see anything clearly now, because the area around the spiritual infantry was now covered in dust, and a storm swept across the void and earth. As the two men and the beast were relatively far from the center of the explosion, they were lucky to escape in the end. However, they were also severely injured. It would be difficult for them to recover without a period of time. However, the old man in black and Old Guo were not so lucky. After the 9 Star War emperors were all killed, they were swallowed by the airwaves one by one. In the end, only the old man in black and Old Guo were lucky enough to survive. Unfortunately, although they had escaped, their sea of qi was shattered and their sea of consciousness was also broken. His body was also covered in wounds, lying on the broken ground unconscious. In other words, they were now 2 disabled people. Even if they woke up now, they would not be able to do much. But Golden Wolf, because of the protection of the divine bough, he was still in peak condition. Time passed quietly. The explosion of the middle-aged man gradually subsided. Boom! Suddenly, in the dust, there was a series of loud noises. The sound was deep and powerful, but it was very rhythmic. It was like a beast was pacing and the ground was shaking. The old man in white and the old man in black also quivered and opened their eyes at the same time. Their originally sharp eyes were now full of weakness. The moment they woke up, they raised their heads and looked in the direction of the loud noises. The dust and smoke had not completely dissipated. However, they could vaguely see that a beast was approaching them bit by bit. Quick! The 2 hurriedly got up, turned around, and ran forward with weak steps. They had already exhausted all their strength, but their speed was still as slow as a snail. The rumbling sound was getting closer and closer. The 2 men were burning with anxiety, and their blood-stained old faces were full of panic. "Where are you going?" Suddenly, a loud voice sounded from the dust and smoke behind them. The 2 men turned around and immediately collapsed on the ground. A sense of hopelessness surged in their hearts. A golden beast gradually appeared. If it was not Golden Wolf, who else could it be? It revealed its true form. Its body was as huge as a mountain, and it walked out of the dust and smoke step by step. As for the divine bough, it had left it with the spiritual infantry to continue protecting it. However, at this moment, even without the divine bough, Golden Wolf's strength was enough to make them feel hopeless. In the end, Golden Wolf stopped in front of the 2 men. There was only a distance of about 10 meters between them. "I only used a little trick, but I didn't expect you to be completely wiped out. Are you humans all so stupid?" It looked down at the black-clothed old man and the white-clothed old man like a hunter looking at 2 prey. Its eyes were also full of mockery. The 2 men were filled with regret, especially the old man in black. If he had not tried to kill the middle-aged man, the middle-aged man would not have self-destructed. If the middle-aged man did not self-destruct, how would they have ended up like this? However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He never thought that the middle-aged man would self-destruct, because he was confident killing the middle-aged man was as easy as flipping his hand. There would be no accidents. However, he never thought that because of his momentary happiness, it would lead to such a disaster, causing everyone and himself to fall into eternal damnation. Golden Wolf glanced at the two men and opened its mouth. Those white fangs made the two men's scalps go numb. Wait, the old man in white suddenly said. Golden Wolf was stunned. It did not stop and directly bit at the two men. The old man in white anxiously shouted, "Let us go, and we'll give you pills." Give me pills? How funny. When I devour you, your chinquin bags will naturally be mine. Golden Wolf sneered. The old man in white froze. Seeing that Golden Wolf's bloody mouth was already in front of him, the old man in black suddenly said, "We can pledge our loyalty to you." The old man in white was stunned and quickly nodded. Yes, yes, yes. As long as you let us go, we'll be your servants and serve you for the rest of our lives. Servants. Golden Wolf was slightly stunned. It looked at the two men for a moment and finally closed its mouth slowly, seeing that the two men could not help but wipe their sweat. Be my servants. Golden Wolf looked at the two men and pondered for a while before nodding. That's a good suggestion. The two men looked at each other and a glimmer of hope burned in their eyes. However, you humans are all insidious and cunning creatures. I don't dare to believe your words easily. Golden Wolf said again, "We swear." The two men hurriedly said, "Swear." Golden Wolf was stunned and sneered. If we were in the same situation now, would you believe my oath? Yes, yes, yes. The two men nodded repeatedly. Yes, my ass. Don't play this game with me. Golden Wolf shouted angrily, a fierce light flashing in its eyes. The two men shrank their necks and asked, "Then what do you want to believe us?" "I only believe in myself." Golden Wolf laughed, and a light flickered on its chest. A palm-sized mark gradually formed, emitting an obscure force. If Fire Qilin, Dan Wangkai, and Wang Yu were here, they would definitely be shocked by the scene, because this mark was the mark of the Blood Soul technique. The old man in black and the old man in white were dumbfounded. They also recognized the Blood Soul technique. In their hearts, they could not believe it. This beast actually mastered the Blood Soul technique? What a joke! Chapter 1495. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? The Golden Wolf looked at them mockingly. Their faces were filled with despair. They were just pretending to compromise. They would find a chance to escape after they repaired their sea of chi and sea of consciousness. The Golden Wolf had mastered the Blood Soul technique. They were both oracles of the main tower and naturally knew the power of the Blood Soul technique. Once they were controlled, the Golden Wolf could destroy their bloodline power with just a thought. If their bloodline power was destroyed, what was the difference between them and a dead person? In other words, once they were controlled by the Blood Soul technique, they would be slaves for the rest of their lives. And they would be slaves to a beast. Most humans had a mind of their own. Humans were born to be superior to beasts, so their self-esteem could not bear it. This was a disgrace. The Golden Wolf glanced at them and said playfully, "Look at you. You don't seem to be willing." "No, no. It's our honor to serve you." The two quickly waved their hands. Between life and self-esteem, they finally gave up their self-esteem and chose life. "You know what's good for you. If you dared to hesitate just now, I would have killed you." The Golden Wolf laughed. The two Blood Soul technique marks turned into a stream of light and disappeared into their bodies in the blink of an eye. The Blood Soul technique was quickly completed. "From now on, you are all my human pets. Call me master for me to hear." The Golden Wolf looked at them domineeringly. The two looked at each other and quickly got up. They bowed and said, "Greetings, master." "Not bad, not bad. It has always been us beasts who have been servants in front of you humans. Now, I have broken the tradition. Two human pets who are peak 9-star combat emperors. It's so cool to bring them out. Awesome. Hand over your chinquin pouches to this king." The Golden Wolf laughed. The two quickly took out their chinquin bags and respectfully handed them to the Golden Wolf. The Golden Wolf did not check. He waved his paw and directly put the two chinquin bags into a sea of chi. The two's expressions changed. They quickly said, "Master, we still need pills to repair our sea of chi and sea of consciousness." The Golden Wolf turned a deaf ear. He turned around and walked toward the spiritual infantry. The two looked at each other and quickly chased after the Golden Wolf. A short while later, the Golden Wolf walked in front of the spiritual infantry and shrunk its body to about a meter long. It raised its head and looked at the golden bough above the spiritual infantry. That is, when the black-clothed old man and the white-haired old man saw the divine bough, their pupils constricted. It was actually a divine artifact. Do you know how powerful I am now? Even if that human didn't self-destruct, it would be easy for me to kill you all, Golden Wolf said proudly. I know. The two of them nodded repeatedly. Who would have thought that this bastard actually had a divine artifact? It was no wonder that they dared to be so arrogant. When most of the aftershock from the explosion had dissipated, the Golden Wolf put away its divine bough and lay down under the nascent soul tree, closing its eyes and taking a nap. Master, what about our sea of chi and sea of consciousness? Seeing that the Golden Wolf still refused to give them the spirit sea pills and essence soul pills, the two of them asked again, "Is this how you beg someone? Do you need this prince to teach you?" The Golden Wolf didn't open his eyes, and his tone was incomparably cold. The two of them looked at each other and knelt on the ground. They said respectfully, "Master, please grant us the spiritual sea pill and essence soul pill." That's right. A servant should act like a servant. Don't make me remind you in the future, understand? The Golden Wolf opened his eyes and snorted at the two of them. Yes. The two of them nodded. The Golden Wolf smiled proudly, and a chinquin bag appeared. He looked at the two of them and said, "One each. Don't take more than that." Yes. The two of them replied respectfully. They each found a spirit sea pill, essence soul pill, and healing pill. They really didn't dare to take more than one. After taking the pills, the two of them respectfully returned the chinquin bag to the Golden Wolf. What's going on? There are only two left? And why are they so respectful to the Golden Wolf? At this moment, Dan Wonkai and Wang Yuer lurked over again and looked at the old man in black and the white-haired old man with surprise. On the other side, the fire Qilin lurked behind a pile of rocks with a trace of suspicion in its eyes. After the Golden Wolf put away the chinquin bag, he closed his eyes and took a nap again. The old man in black and the white-haired old man also sat cross-legged beside the Golden Wolf, repairing their sea of chi and sea of consciousness. For a moment, this place fell into a dead silence. About an hour passed. The two of them opened their eyes and a terrifying aura roared out. They had already recovered to their peak state. The injuries on their bodies were basically healed. What are you doing? Don't you know that I'm sleeping? The Golden Wolf suddenly opened its eyes and said angrily, "Sorry, Master." The two of them trembled and quickly withdrew their aura. What, Master? The fire Qilin, Dan Wonkai, and Wang Yuer were dumbfounded. What was going on? They actually called the Golden Wolf Master? Was this a dream? Under the nascent soul tree, the Golden Wolf glanced at the two of them fiercely and then closed its eyes again. The two of them exhaled, their faces full of fear. The white-haired old man glanced around and looked at the Golden Wolf. He asked cautiously, "Master, can I ask you a question?" "Speak," the Golden Wolf said. The white-haired old man said, "How do you know the blood soul technique?" The old man in black also looked at it suspiciously. The Golden Wolf was silent for a while and said casually, "Once I encountered a human corpse, and the blood soul technique was found in his chinquin bag." So that's how it is. The two of them suddenly understood. Didn't you come here to look for treasures? Let me tell you, there are many treasures here. For example, I have collected a large box of perfect battle arts over the years. There are at least 50 to 60 of them. The Golden Wolf said proudly. So many? Then where are those perfect battle arts now? The two of them were dumbfounded. 50 to 60 perfect battle arts. Oh my God! This was too crazy. Those perfect battle arts are now with my brother. If you want, wait for him to come. I will ask him to give you more than 10. The Golden Wolf said. Thank you, Master. The two of them hurriedly knelt on the ground and thanked him. The Golden Wolf said disdainfully, Just perfect battle arts, and you are so happy. How unambitious. The two of them looked at each other and said to the Golden Wolf, Master, do you have other divine arts? Of course. However, my brother has already cultivated the divine art. You have no chance. The Golden Wolf said lightly, Master, do you cultivate any divine arts? The old man in black asked. I don't. Back then, my brother and I accidentally found a divine treasure. There was a divine artifact and a divine art inside. I chose the divine artifact at that time, so I naturally gave the divine art to my brother. The Golden Wolf said, Divine artifact, divine art. The two of them were shocked. At the same time, the Fire Qilin and Dan Wangkai were also extremely shocked. Not only was there a divine artifact, but there was also a divine art? Oh my God! Fortunately, they did not rush to snatch the divine infantry. Otherwise, they would have ended up like those two. It was not until now that they understood. It turned out that the old man in black and the white-haired old man were controlled by the Golden Wolf's blood soul technique. Dan Wangkai turned to look at Wang Yu, and said in a low voice, Miss Yu, the people from the main tower don't seem to be very good. They're really a disgrace to the main tower. Wang Yu snorted and stared at the two old men. Her eyes were filled with a sharp light. She naturally understood the mockery in Dan Wangkai's words. He was mocking the people from the main tower for being spineless, and she could not refute that, because that was the truth. Dan Wangkai narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, But this matter also has something to do with you. Has something to do with me? Wang Yu was stunned and looked at him in confusion. Of course, if you had warned them earlier, they wouldn't have killed each other and led to the annihilation of the entire team. Those two people naturally wouldn't have been controlled by the Golden Wolf. Dan Wangkai said. He was obviously trying to provoke Wang Yu, but Wang Yu was not moved at all. She said coldly, Everyone has their own fate. This is their fate. Everyone has their own fate. I really underestimated you in the past, Miss Yu. Dan Wangkai said. Wang Yu said, Time will change everything, including people's hearts. Dan Wangkai shook his head. It seemed that because of the young master's incident, this woman was really hurt. Otherwise, she would not say such words now. Whoosh! Suddenly, from the right, there was another burst of air-piercing sounds. Dan Wangkai turned around and saw 3 silhouettes dashing over from afar. They were 2 men and a woman, middle-aged. Their cultivation was at the 9-star War Emperor level. There was also a flame symbol on the clothes on their chests. Obviously, they were the oracles of the main tower. Someone else is coming. It seems that there will be no peace here today. Dan Wangkai sighed. Wang Yu's expression remained unchanged. No one knew what she was thinking at this moment. At the same time, the Golden Wolf and the old man in black also sensed the aura of the 3 people. It's them. When they turned and looked up, their eyes trembled slightly when they saw the 2 men and the woman. They obviously knew them. Seeing the 2 men and the woman getting closer and closer, the old man in black's eyes were full of anxiety. He transmitted his voice. Old Gua, Quickly remind them secretly not to let them come over. Why should we remind them? When we were in trouble, why didn't anyone come out to help us? The white-haired old man snorted. Chapter 1496. Hearing the white-haired old man's words. The black-haired old man's pupils constricted. Do you want to drag them down with you? The white-haired old man didn't deny it. You're crazy. What good will it do us to drag them down with us? Do you really want to be a slave for this beast for the rest of your life? Old Gua, I know you're not feeling good right now, but you can't do something that's disadvantageous to the main tower. Your mentality right now is very bad. You're in trouble, and you want others to be in trouble with you. You have to remember that no matter what situation you're in, you're still a member of the main tower. The black-haired old man said angrily. The white-haired old man's body trembled. What's the use of reminding them now? Can they help us get out of trouble? Nonsense. Of course they can. As long as they don't fall into the Golden Wolf's hands, they can find the Temple Master. When the Temple Master learns about our situation, he'll definitely summon people to save us. The black-haired old man said. The Temple Master he was talking about was Gongsun Bei. Temple Master! The white-haired old man pondered for a while and sighed. The Golden Wolf has a divine artifact. Even if the Temple Master summons people, he won't be able to save us. Give up. This old man really misjudged you. I didn't expect you to be such a person. Whether the Temple Master can save us or not, we have to try, right? The black-haired old man said angrily. If the Golden Wolf wasn't next to him, he would have turned hostile on the spot. The white-haired old man also had a trace of hostility. He turned to look at the Golden Wolf and pointed at the black-haired old man. Master, he asked me to secretly warn those 3 people. Old Guayu, the black-haired old man, looked at the white-haired old man in disbelief. He actually betrayed him? The Golden Wolf was slightly stunned. He glanced at the black-haired old man, then looked at the white-haired old man and asked curiously, Is that so? How did he ask you to warn those 3 people? The white-haired old man said, He asked me to secretly tell them to leave this place immediately and gather people to deal with you. Bastard. The black-haired old man roared in anger. The 2 men and 1 woman who were rushing over also heard the old man's roar and were slightly stunned. When he raised his head and saw the black-clothed old man and the white-haired old man, he was pleasantly surprised. Elder Gua, Elder Yu. The 3 of them shouted as they ran. They also saw the Golden Wolf. However, at this moment, the Golden Wolf was lying on the ground motionlessly with its aura restrained. They thought that it was a spirit pet that Elder Gua and Elder Gua had subdued at the miracle. Of course, they couldn't be blamed for being stupid. Anyone who saw this scene would think the same, because no one would think that dire beasts could be above humans. In this world, there were only spirit pets and no human pets. The Golden Wolf glanced at the 2 men and the woman, then glanced at the old man in black and said, Although this king is very angry now, this king still wants to give you another chance. The white-haired old man raised his eyebrows in dissatisfaction. He had thought that the Golden Wolf would kill the black-clothed old man directly, but he didn't expect that he would give him a chance. The black-clothed old man was also quite surprised. He looked at the Golden Wolf and said, What chance? The Golden Wolf said, Kill them with your own hands, and this king will spare your life. This is your last chance. You have to think carefully. The black-clothed old man's face changed when he heard this. In the end, he gritted his teeth and rushed toward the 2 men and the woman with a murderous aura. The white-clothed old man looked at the back of the black-clothed old man with murderous intent in his eyes. He turned to the Golden Wolf and asked, Master, are you really going to let him go? Do you think it's possible? After killing those 3 people, this king will immediately destroy his bloodline power and let him have a taste of betraying this king. The Golden Wolf said, "So Master first gave him hope and then let him despair." The white-haired old man nodded in realization. "Yes, only after killing them will you know that you can't escape death in the end. What can be more torturous than this?" The Golden Wolf laughed. "Master is wise. At that time, I think he will definitely collapse." The white-haired old man smiled flatteringly. "You are very good. This king likes you very much. Don't worry as long as you are this king's human pet. This king will not treat you badly." The Golden Wolf looked at the white-haired old man and said, "Thank you, Master." The white-haired old man hurriedly bowed and thanked him. "What a bastard! He's worse than a dog." Dan Wonkai stared at the white-haired old man with a face full of disgust. There were many shameless people in this world, but it was the first time he had seen such a shameless person. As for the black-clothed old man, at this moment, he was only half a mile away from the two men and the woman. "Elder Yu, we finally found you." One of the middle-aged men looked at the black-clothed old man from afar and laughed loudly. Elder Yu did not answer. He glanced at the Golden Wolf and the white-haired old man from the corner of his eyes and suddenly shouted to the two men and the woman, "Don't come any closer! Quickly run! We have been controlled by the Golden Wolf's blood soul technique. It sent me to kill you." What? The two men and the woman were stunned. Controlled by the blood soul technique? How could it be? Dan Wonkai was also stunned. He looked at the black-clothed old man and muttered to himself, "This person still has some conscience." "Quick!" the black-clothed old man roared. "Elder Yu, don't joke around. Your cultivation is so strong. How could you be controlled by a wolf cub?" The two men and the woman laughed. "This old man is not joking. Quickly run. Otherwise it will be too late." The black-clothed old man shouted anxiously. "This," looking at Elder Yu's expression, "it seems that he is not joking with us?" The two men and the woman looked at each other and raised their heads at the same time. They found that the Golden Wolf had already stood up with a fierce light in its eyes. Whoosh! The three of them immediately turned around and fled in panic. Their hearts were filled with disbelief. As the divine envoys of the main pagoda, they knew that the white-haired old man and the black-clothed old man were peak 9-star combat emperors. How could they be controlled by the Golden Wolf? The black-clothed old man roared, "Find the palace master. You must tell him to be careful of that bastard Elder Gua. He has betrayed our main pagoda." Elder Gua betrayed the main pagoda. Waves of shock surged in the hearts of the three. Just as the black-clothed old man finished speaking, a destructive aura suddenly rushed out from his body. "Damn, he is going to self-destruct again." Dan Wonksai's expression changed, and he immediately turned around to flee. But just as he turned around, the destructive aura suddenly dissipated, and at the same time a painful scream was heard. Dan Wonkai looked back and saw that the black-clothed old man's blood vessels had burst and blood was spurting out. He looked like a man made of blood. "It's the Golden Wolf," Wang Yuer said. Dan Wonkai looked at the Golden Wolf again. It turned out that the Golden Wolf had activated the blood soul technique and destroyed the black-clothed old man's bloodline power. "How dare you disobey in front of this king? You are courting death. Go and capture those 3 people alive for this king. As for this old man, this king will teach him a lesson." The Golden Wolf smiled ferociously and walked towards the black-clothed old man step by step. This is the price of being smart. The white-haired old man glanced at the black-clothed old man. There was no sympathy in his eyes. Instead, there was a trace of ridicule. Then he used the perfect auxiliary technique and chased after the 2 men and the woman like lightning. The black-clothed old man lay on the ground, staring at the white-haired old man, and roared, "Old Gua, if you still have some humanity, don't hurt them." "What is humanity? Right now, I just want to try my best to live." The white-haired old man said without turning his head. You beast! How can there be a scum like you in my main pagoda? Shame! The black-clothed old man roared in grief. Bang! Suddenly, the golden wolf stepped on the black-clothed old man and shouted, Shut up for this king! Just you wait, you will die a horrible death. The black-clothed old man roared with resentment. The golden wolf laughed and lowered his head, revealing his fangs, and laughed. This king wants to see how much backbone you have. Finished. It bit the black-clothed old man's right arm and tore it off. His methods were extremely cruel. Ah! The heart-wrenching pain caused the black-clothed old man to scream nonstop. But from beginning to end, he did not lower his head, nor did he beg for mercy. Dan Wonkai looked at this scene and could not help but admire the black-clothed old man. Originally, seeing the black-clothed old man submit to the golden wolf, he was a little annoyed, but now he knew that this person was still a person with a bottom line and courage. Compared to the white-haired old man, he was thousands or tens of thousands of times stronger. Not bad, you actually endured it, but the more painful part is still to come. How long can you last? The golden wolf swallowed the arm that was torn off, licked its mouth, and then bit the black-clothed old man's left arm. Bastard, come at me. If this old man frowns, he's not my father and mother's son. The black-clothed old man roared. A fierce light flashed in the golden wolf's eyes, and it was about to tear off the black-clothed old man's left arm. Sigh. But at this moment a sigh rang out. The golden wolf raised its eyebrows and looked in the direction of the sound. Chapter 1497. Immediately, in everyone's line of sight, a white-haired youth walked out from behind a pile of rocks. How could it be him? Everyone present, except for the golden wolf, had a change of expression. This person was tall and straight, and his eyebrows were as sharp as swords. His long hair danced in the wind. His cultivation was not strong, but he was a 6-star combat emperor. However, just by standing there, he was like a god that had descended, giving off a great sense of oppression. Lu Xingqian. Dan Wonkai murmured, and his eyes flashed coldly. That's right. The owner of the Sai was Lu Xingqian, 6-star combat emperor. The golden wolf saw through Lu Xingqian's cultivation and was stunned. It then stood up and said sarcastically, Are you here to die? Die. Lu Xingqian was taken aback. He took a step forward and leisurely walked toward the golden wolf and the old man in black. He chuckled and said, Death is too far away for me. Ah, the golden wolf was stunned. A mere 6-star combat emperor dared to be so arrogant in front of it? Lu Xingqian lowered his head and looked at the old man in black. He then looked up at the golden wolf and said, I admire this person, so I plan to take him under my wing. Me, the old man in black, was stunned. Yes, a talent like you can only use your full strength by following me. Now, as long as you agree, I will kill it immediately and give you back your freedom. Lu Xingqian said. His tone was casual, as if he was talking about something very easy. Kill me? The golden wolf was stunned. It then raised its head and laughed as if it had heard the funniest joke in the world. Lu Xingqian glanced at it, then looked at the old man in black and said, Follow me, and I will make sure you become a deity. Make your decision. Become a deity. The old man in black's eyes trembled. He hesitated for a moment and nodded. Following you is better than being bullied by a beast. I agree. Very good. Lu Xingqian faintly smiled. A strand of spiritual energy emerged and shot across the sky like lightning towards Jean Lang's forehead. What divine sense! The golden wolf, who was still laughing, immediately changed its expression when it saw the divine sense. Clang! The divine bow appeared again. The golden light shone brightly in the sky. Boom! Under the golden wolf's control, the divine bow shook the void and attacked the divine sense. There was a loud explosion. The divine bow of divine sense. His divine sense, however, was unharmed. After repelling the divine bow, he swept up the black-robed old man and returned to Lu Xingchen's side. The golden wolf took a few steps back and gloomily stared at Lu Xingchen. You actually have such a powerful divine sense. Who are you? I don't think so. I can only say that your divine artifact is not strong enough. Lu Xingchen's eyes were full of disdain. In today's world, the only divine artifacts that could truly make him fearful were pale snow and the ancient castle. As for the divine bow in front of him, compared to pale snow and the ancient castle, it was many levels lower. He didn't care about it at all. With a wave of his hand, 3 strands of divine sense flew out from the top of his head and charged toward the golden wolf with terrifying power. How can this be? Isn't the first level of the divine sight only accessible to combat emperors? Why is Lu Xingchen here? He can even use divine sense. Dan Wangkai mumbled with a face full of suspicion. There's only one reason. The first level of the divine rule only recognizes the cultivation level. Although Lu Xingchen has divine sense, his cultivation level is only that of a 6-star combat emperor. Wang Yuer thought for a while and sent a telepathic message. Then, who can be his opponent? Dan Wangkai raised his eyebrows. Roar! While the two were talking, the golden wolf suddenly roared and stood up. Human, don't be too arrogant. Battle, Qi surged out of his body and rushed toward the divine bow. Clang! In the next moment, a black-gray arrow was condensed and formed. The black light flashed and exuded a destructive aura. Kill! The golden wolf roared angrily. It was as if an invisible hand had grabbed the arrow and pulled the divine bow. Whoosh! Suddenly, the arrow shot out, and its power shook the heavens as it blasted toward the 3 divine senses. Retreat! Seeing this, Dan Wangkai immediately turned around and slipped away. Wang Yuer and the fire Qilin on the other side did not dare to delay and quickly left. What a joke! The collision between the divine sense and the divine weapon was more terrifying than the self-destruction of a 9-star combat emperor. If they did not leave this place quickly, they would definitely lose their lives. At the same time, Lu Xingchen waved his hand and sent the old man in black into the divine item. Then, he turned into a ray of light and flew toward the spiritual infant tree. Such a big spiritual infant tree was comparable to an ultimate treasure. Moreover, he also had the pill formula of the congealing pill. Naturally, he could not let the spiritual infant tree be destroyed. In your dreams, the golden wolf roared again and again. A wave of battle Qi surged out and turned into a giant black hand. It grabbed the spiritual infant tree and uprooted it. How dare you? Lu Xingchen shouted. This is mine to begin with. The golden wolf sneered and opened its wide mouth, sucking the spiritual infant tree into its mouth. Boom! At the same time, in the void, the arrow and the 3 divine senses collided. A world-destroying aura suddenly appeared. With this place as the center, it rolled out in all directions, destroying everything in its path. Poof! The golden wolf spat out a mouthful of blood. Its huge body flew out and smashed into the ground with a bang. A huge crater immediately appeared. Dust flew everywhere, covering the sky and the sun. At the same time, Lu Xingchen was also sent flying, and a stream of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Then he looked at the arrow and the 3 divine senses. The 2 madly collided in the void and made a deafening sound. Crack! But in the end, the arrow shattered. As for the 3 strands of divine sense, only one of them dissipated. The remaining 2 strands of divine sense didn't stop at all and headed straight for the golden wolf. Murderous intent filled the sky. Lu Xingchen's expression was gloomy. It was not hard to tell that he really wanted to kill. However, although the golden wolf suffered a few losses in the hands of Lu Xingqian, its aura was even more terrifying. Roar! It roared and got up. The blood qi in its body surged, and a blood-colored arrow condensed with a clang. The moment the arrow appeared, the sky changed color, and a strong wind rose from the ground, roaring in all directions. The aura and sharpness it emitted were several times more terrifying than the arrow earlier. This king's ability to dominate a region is not an undeserved reputation. The golden wolf cackled, and the divine bow shone with a golden light. Whoosh! The blood-colored arrow tore through the air, a torrential bloodlight. From afar, it looked like a blood dragon with shocking divine might. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the blood arrow and the two divine senses collided. The scene was like two comets colliding in the sky. The divine light that erupted even covered the radiance of the 10 suns in the sky. Poof! This time round, a wisp of Lu Xingqian's divine sense was shattered instantly and blood spewed out. It's so strong! His gaze trembled. It seemed like he had underestimated the golden wolf. It was using its own blood qi to forcefully revive the divine bow. Rumble! Boom! The remaining divine sense and the blood-colored arrow collided continuously, and destructive waves rolled in all directions. How terrifying! Fortunately, we left in time. Otherwise, we would have died. On the peak of a gigantic mountain in the distance, Dan Wangkai and Wang Yu stood side by side. They looked at the surging air wave with fear. As the air wave surged, the gigantic mountain beneath their feet began to shake violently. Retreat again. Chapter 1498. Not only Dan Wangkai, but the fire Qilin also retreated again and again. After 2 self-detonations, coupled with the arrival of Lu Xingqian, the water source was almost destroyed. However, although the mountains and rivers were broken, the temperature here was still very cool. Boom! A moment passed. Lu Xingqian's remaining divine consciousness finally decided the winner with the blood-colored arrow. The final result was that the blood-colored arrow was defeated and the divine consciousness won. Lu Xingqian took a few steps back, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at the golden wolf that was sent flying, and said, "Burning blood to revive the bow. Aren't you afraid of burning yourself?" Hee. This king's strength is not something you can imagine. The golden wolf laughed. Qi and blood surged out like a tide, continuously surging towards the golden divine bow. Clang! The divine bow trembled, and the divine power became more and more amazing. Lu Xingqian raised his eyebrows and shouted, "You are courting death!" The minimum requirement to revive a divine artifact was to break through to the pseudo-god realm. But even a pseudo-god would be greatly injured after reviving a divine artifact and would need to rest for several days to recover, not to mention a 9-star war emperor. Although the golden wolf's cultivation had reached the peak and was only 1 step away from the pseudo-god realm, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. The golden wolf's actions were undoubtedly courting death. After that, Lu Xingqian did not confront the golden wolf directly, because using blood to revive a divine artifact would not last long. Whether it was a human or a beast, blood was limited. Once blood was exhausted, even if a god descended to the mortal world, there would be no saving him. Most importantly, using blood to forcefully revive a divine artifact would result in a backlash from the divine artifact. In other words, the divine artifact would take the initiative to plunder blood from the master's body, and it could not be interrupted until the master died. So Lu Xingqian's plan was not to fight, to avoid the risk of losing his divine consciousness, and to slowly deal with the golden wolf, waiting for the golden wolf to bury himself. However, as time passed, the golden wolf did not show any signs of weakness, but instead became more and more vigorous. It felt as if the blood in its body was endless. "What's going on?" Lu Xingqian was bewildered. As everyone knew, burning one's vitality was equivalent to burning one's lifespan. As his qi and blood were depleted, he would slowly show signs of aging. But now, the golden wolf's appearance had not changed at all. It was still as strong and lively as before. Don't think that I don't know your intentions. You want to waste time with me? How naive. The golden wolf's eyes were filled with mockery. Rumble. Crack. The battle continued. Gradually, Lu Xingqian actually felt a sense of pressure. The injuries on his body also increased and became more and more serious. In the end, he could no longer avoid the battle and had no choice but to launch some counterattacks. Time passed quickly. 6 to 8 hours have already passed. How long are they going to fight for? In the distance, the Fire Qilin and Dan Wangkai were both dumbfounded. The battle between Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf had already lasted for 6 to 8 hours, but it still showed no signs of ending. Originally, they all thought that Lu Xingqian would end the battle as easily as crushing dry weeds. After all, he had divine sense. But they never expected that it would turn into a protracted battle. They really couldn't figure out what ability the Golden Wolf had to be able to fight with Lu Xingqian for so long. Further away, the white-haired old man had already caught the 2 men and the woman. But he didn't go back, because with his cultivation and strength, he couldn't withstand the fluctuations of the battle between Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf. Of course, he certainly wouldn't take the initiative to go back. He couldn't wait for the Golden Wolf to die in the hands of Lu Xingqian. In this way, he could regain his freedom. At this moment, he was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking at the battlefield from afar. He clenched his fists. He prayed silently in his heart. "Old Guo, let us go. We'll go to the temple master and ask him to gather people to save you. Don't be so stubborn." The 2 men and the woman begged. The white-haired old man had destroyed their sea of qi and confiscated their chenkuan bags. They were full of helplessness. "Shut up!" The white-haired old man shouted coldly without turning his head, killing intent flashing in his eyes. If the Golden Wolf hadn't said that he wanted them alive, he would have killed the 3 of them to silence them. At the same time, in front of the exit of the Bone Canyon, there were mountains. At this moment, be it on the mountain or on the ground, there were ghost wolves everywhere. Without exception, they looked at the water source in front of them, their eyes full of worry. The fluctuations of the battle between Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf had already alarmed the ghost wolves in the nearby canyon. However, in the face of the terrifying fluctuations of the battle, none of the ghost wolves dared to enter the water source to help. Hundreds of miles away from the exit, a figure was running in the canyon as fast as lightning. It was Qin Feiyang. Along the way, he had been using the phantom steps to hurry, so he arrived here in advance. As for the Scorpion King, it had been napping on his shoulder. On the way, although they encountered many ghost wolves, under Qin Feiyang's tyrannical means, they were basically unimpeded. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang stopped and looked in the direction of the water source, a trace of surprise in his eyes. "What's wrong?" The Scorpion King quivered and stood on Qin Feiyang's shoulder, scanning the front, his eyes full of murderous intent. He thought that there was a sudden attack by ghost wolves. "There seems to be a battle ahead. And have you noticed that there are obviously fewer ghost wolves around here?" Qin Feiyang said. "It seems to be the case." The Scorpion King looked around and nodded. "It seems that someone has beaten us to it again." Qin Feiyang mumbled and used the phantom steps again, rushing toward the exit. As he got closer, the fluctuations of the battle became more obvious. Gradually, Qin Feiyang frowned. There seemed to be a familiar aura in the fluctuations of the battle. Suddenly, his gaze trembled. Lu Xingqian. "It's this bastard again." There was a flash of murderous intent in Qin Feiyang's eyes. The distance of hundreds of miles was nothing to Qin Feiyang now. Soon he saw the exit. It turns out that the ghost wolves are all gathered here. The Scorpion King said, "Roar." The ghost wolves at the exit also noticed Qin Feiyang and the Scorpion King. They immediately gritted their teeth and revealed a murderous look. "If you want to die, then bring it on." The Scorpion King sneered. A 9-star combat emperor ghost wolf jumped down from the top of the mountain and landed at the exit. He stared at the Scorpion King in disgust and said, "You bastard, you're actually a dog for a human. You're simply a disgrace to us beasts. Be careful with your words." The Scorpion King was furious. "If you have the ability to do it, why are you afraid of us saying it?" Another 9-star combat emperor ghost wolf stood in front of the exit and laughed coldly. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm not interested in you guys. Get out of the way." He didn't stop and went straight to the exit. "If you want to go over, then let's see if you have the ability." The 2 ghost wolves roared and revealed their true forms. They were like mountains and rushed toward Qin Feiyang fiercely. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted through his nose. Both of his hands shot out and punched out. Roar! Boom! Accompanied by 2 loud sounds, the 2 ghost wolves were suddenly sent flying. Their huge bodies were bleeding profusely. Qin Feiyang didn't stop and directly swept past them. "Stop him! We can't let him meet up with another human. Otherwise, Lord Golden Wolf King will be in danger." The 2 ghost wolves immediately roared anxiously when they saw this. The ghost wolves around the exit suddenly swarmed forward and blocked Qin Feiyang's path. "You're courting death." The Scorpion King was furious and murderous intent surged in his eyes. "Wait." Qin Feiyang stopped the Scorpion King and turned to look at the 2 ghost wolves. He said, "You just said that the one fighting in front is the Golden Wolf King." "Yes." The 2 beasts nodded. "Not bad." Qin Feiyang was surprised. He knew Lu Xingqian's strength very well. The fact that the Golden Wolf King dared to fight with him meant that his strength was not simple. The Scorpion King asked, "How long have they been fighting?" "It should have been more than 8 hours." The 2 beasts said. "What?" Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. He originally thought that it had just begun, but he didn't expect that the battle had already been going on for more than 8 hours. What did the Golden Wolf King use to fight with Lu Xingqian? Interesting. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He turned around and leaped over the layers of wolves, rushing into the water source like lightning. "What should we do?" The wolves looked at the 2 9-star combat emperor ghost wolves. "Nonsense. Of course we should inform Lord Wolf King as soon as possible. If we don't come, Lord Golden Wolf King will be in danger." The 2 beasts roared. "Howl!" Immediately, deafening wolf howls resounded through the White Bones Canyon one after another. As soon as he entered the water source, Qin Feiyang could clearly sense the Golden Wolf King's aura. It was even stronger than Lu Xingqian's aura. How could this be? Could it be that Lu Xingqian's strength is not as strong as the Golden Wolf King's? But doesn't Lu Xingqian have divine consciousness? No wonder. Could it be that his spiritual awareness has been exhausted? Qin Feiyang was surprised. A terrifying wave of energy surged toward them. The strong wind turned into tornadoes, sweeping in all directions. But Qin Feiyang did not stop at all. The Scorpion King asked suspiciously, "Boss, why are you in such a hurry? It's not too late for us to reap the benefits when both sides are injured." "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Why?" The Scorpion King was puzzled. Qin Feiyang said, "Because of the Silver Wolf King." "The Silver Wolf King?" The Scorpion King was stunned and wondered. "Boss, wait, isn't the Silver Wolf King already far behind us? Why are you still thinking about it?" "At first, I had the same idea as you. I thought that by activating the Phantom Steps, I could completely shake off the Silver Wolf King. But later I thought about it carefully. Since the Silver Wolf King has so many perfect battle skills in his treasure, then it is very likely that he also has perfect auxiliary battle skills. If that's the case, then the distance between us and him hasn't actually widened. Qin Feiyang said, "It shouldn't be possible, because if he really has perfect auxiliary battle skills, he would have activated them when he was chasing us from the beginning. Then, he would have caught up with us before we looted his treasure. After all, we looted the treasure and waited until dawn before you used phantom steps to hurry on." The Scorpion King said, "That makes sense. However, things might change if we delay. Whether the Silver Wolf King has perfect auxiliary battle skills or not, we have to take down Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf King as soon as possible." Qin Feiyang said, killing intent flashing in his eyes. "Okay." The Scorpion King nodded. Qin Feiyang thought again and said, "I don't think you can interfere in this matter. Go to the castle and wait for my orders." "Okay." Chapter 1499. After sending the Scorpion King to the castle, Qin Feiyang restrained his aura and approached the center of the battlefield. Not long after, Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf King came into sight. Looking at the man and beast, Qin Feiyang's face was full of disbelief. The current situation was actually Lu Xingqian being suppressed. How was this possible? The Golden Wolf King was only at the peak realm. Even if he had a divine artifact, this shouldn't happen. Could it be? Could the Golden Wolf King's divine artifact be compared to Chang Shui's? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled slightly. He quickly scanned the void above and immediately saw the golden bow. It was indeed a divine artifact. Looking at the divine bow, Qin Feiyang's eyes were burning with passion. Wait! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang seemed to have discovered something. A hint of surprise crawled up his face. He lowered his head and looked at the Golden Wolf King, then looked up at the divine bow. He was instantly dumbfounded. The Golden Wolf King was actually using blood and qi to revive. This guy, did he want to die? Qin Feiyang hesitated. His original plan was to get rid of Lu Xingqian first, because in his opinion, Lu Xingqian was a greater threat than the Golden Wolf King. But now, it seemed that the Golden Wolf King was a greater threat than Lu Xingqian. It has been going on for 6 to 8 hours, using blood and qi to revive the divine artifact. How did you do it? Lu Xingqian suddenly shouted. What? It has been going on for 6 to 8 hours. Qin Feiyang's eyes widened as he stared at the Golden Wolf King. His face was full of disbelief. As far as he knew, a peak 9-star combat emperor could only use blood and qi to revive the divine artifact for 100 breaths at most. Even if the Golden Wolf King's blood and qi were more vigorous than others, it couldn't last for 6 to 8 hours. He looked at the man and beast, his eyes flickering. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's gaze once again fell on the divine bow. The reason why the Golden Wolf King was so strong was all because of the godly bow. Without the divine bow, even if it had endless qi and blood, it would be useless. Gradually, a smile crept onto Qin Feiyang's face, and he quietly swept behind Lu Xingqian. That was right. His first target was Lu Xingqian. Lu Xingqian was too cunning, and he also had a spatial divine item. If he didn't kill him in one blow, it would be very difficult to find another opportunity. Now was undoubtedly the best opportunity. Whoosh! After hiding behind Lu Xingqian, Qin Feiyang didn't hesitate at all. He took out the Chang Shui and attacked. The Golden Wolf King, who was having a good time with Lu Xingqian, immediately noticed Qin Feiyang. Because it and Lu Xingqian were standing opposite each other, it could see Qin Feiyang as soon as he appeared. Qin Feiyang saw that the situation wasn't good, and hurriedly gestured for the Golden Wolf King to keep quiet. He believed that the Golden Wolf King would definitely understand. The Golden Wolf King did indeed understand Qin Feiyang's meaning, but it was afraid that this was a trap deliberately set up by Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian. On the surface, it looked like they were attacking Lu Xingqian, but in fact they wanted to numb it and take the opportunity to attack it. Therefore, in a moment of desperation, it made a decision. Retreat. Seeing the Golden Wolf King suddenly retreat, Lu Xingqian naturally became suspicious. He hurriedly turned his head, and when he saw Qin Feiyang, his expression changed, and he instantly disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Qin Feiyang was furious. This Golden Wolf King was really stupid. Such a good opportunity was wasted, just like that. The Golden Wolf King sized up Qin Feiyang and said, "You humans can't be trusted, so don't blame me." Qin Feiyang put away the Chang Shui and said with a smile, "I don't blame you, but you have to bear the consequences." Trying to scare me? The Golden Wolf King sneered. Qin Feiyang said, "What do you think?" The Golden Wolf King said, "Then tell me, what consequences do I have to bear?" Ha! With a faint laugh, Lu Xingqian appeared beside Qin Feiyang. He looked at the Golden Wolf King and said, "The consequences that Brother Qin mentioned are that we will join forces to kill you. You are indeed the same kind of people." The Golden Wolf King's eyes darkened. "No, no, no. Our relationship isn't what you think it is. Brother Qin did want to kill me just now. If you hadn't suddenly retreated, I would have been dead by now." Lu Xingqian waved his hand. "He wanted to kill you and you still call him brother? And now you're saying that you want to join forces to kill me. What's the relationship between the two of you?" The Golden Wolf King sized up the two of them suspiciously. Lu Xingqian chuckled and said, "Our relationship is quite complicated. I can't explain it clearly in a short time." Qin Feiyang said, "Even if I tell you, you might not understand." The Golden Wolf King was stunned. Then he threw his head back and laughed loudly. There was a strong sense of mockery in his laughter. "Do you think that I'm afraid of you just because you joined forces? Come, let me see how capable you all are." The Golden Wolf King stood up and his aura surged. He was like a beast god that had descended, looking down on all directions. However, Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian turned a blind eye to all of this. They even treated the Golden Wolf King as heir. Lu Xingqian asked, "Brother Qin, how should we split the divine bow?" "What do you think?" Qin Feiyang asked. "We'll use our own methods." "What do you think?" Lu Xingqian said. "Agreed." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Preposterous, preposterous. You're not taking me seriously at all." The Golden Wolf King was furious. His qi and blood surged and condensed into two blood-colored arrows. Divine power swept in all directions and shot towards Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian. "Brother Qin, the power of these arrows is a little terrifying. You have to be careful." "Of course, I also believe that you'll have a way to deal with it." Lu Xingqian chuckled. A wisp of divine consciousness swept out and met one of the blood-colored arrows without looking back. "You want to see me embarrass myself?" Qin Feiyang raised a corner of his mouth slightly and said, "You don't have to worry about it. Just take care of yourself." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying divine power emerged. Sensing the divine power, Lu Xingqian and the Golden Wolf King immediately looked over and saw purple gold armor appear on Qin Feiyang's body. Lu Xingqian's eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, "Look at my memory. I actually forgot that the Crocodile Emperor's armor has been given to you." "What?" "That's the Crocodile Emperor's armor." The Golden Wolf King's eyes trembled. Whoosh! Qin Feiyang attacked decisively. Without any fancy moves, he directly punched the blood-colored arrows. The fist and the blood-colored arrows collided with a loud bang, accompanied by a loud clang. Qin Feiyang was sent flying on the spot with blood gushing out of his mouth. However, The blood-colored arrows were also shattered by Qin Feiyang's punch. At the same time, Lu Xingqian also shattered another arrow and laughed. Brother Qin, it's rare for us to team up in a battle. Let's go all out, okay? As you wish. Divine Dragon Seal. Qin Feiyang raised his head and roared. The Divine Dragon Seal appeared in the sky like a huge mountain. It carried a monstrous divine power and suppressed the Golden Wolf King. Lu Xingqian also waved his hand. His divine consciousness swept across the sky and charged towards the Golden Wolf King. The Golden Wolf King's eyes darkened. His divine bow shone brightly and faced the Divine Dragon Seal. Boom! The Divine Dragon Seal was shattered immediately. However, Lu Xingqian's divine consciousness also blasted towards the divine bow. With a clang, the divine bow was sent flying and smashed into the ground in the distance. Awesome. Brother Qin, did you see that? If we team up, who can compete with us? I hope you can reconsider my suggestion. Let's team up and fight together and divide the world equally. Lu Xingqian laughed. Not interested. Qin Feiyang replied coldly. He activated the battle art and used the phantom steps to rush towards the Golden Wolf King. You're courting death. The Golden Wolf King was enraged. Battle chi surged, and a black battle axe instantly appeared above his head. The battle axe was a few 100 feet long, and its sharpness was shocking. Indeed, you have mastered a battle art. It's just a perfect battle art. What can it do to me? Qin Feiyang's face was full of disdain. At this moment, he activated 2 layers of defense. He was not afraid of Lu Xingqian's divine consciousness, let alone a perfect battle art. Thinking back to when he was in Crocodile's territory, he relied on these 2 layers of defense to fight against Lu Xingqian and was in an invincible position. He threw a punch. It was simple and violent. The battle axe shattered. Poof! The Golden Wolf King spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Lu Xingqian's divine consciousness streaked across the sky and pierced through the Golden Wolf King's body, leaving a fist-sized bloody hole with blood gushing out. Qin Feiyang said coldly, "Now answer me. Can you bear the consequences?" The Golden Wolf King looked at Qin Feiyang and then at Lu Xingqian. It could not help but feel regretful. When Qin Feiyang sneaked an attack on Lu Xingqian, it should not have thought so much. Otherwise, Lu Xingqian would have died at the hands of Qin Feiyang. Without Lu Xingqian, it would not have to expend so much effort to deal with Qin Feiyang. Of course, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was a disaster that it had caused. No matter how bitter it was, it had to be swallowed. Crack! Rumble! With the addition of Qin Feiyang, it was a one-sided battle. Even the Golden Wolf King's resurrection bow was useless. After all, whether it was Lu Xingqian or Qin Feiyang, they had too many trump cards in their hands. The Golden Wolf King retreated step by step. A sense of fear slowly rose in its heart. But now, even if it wanted to escape, it had to get the permission of Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian. The Golden Wolf King dodged in a panic while secretly transmitting its voice to Qin Feiyang. "Human, let's talk." "Talk about what?" Qin Feiyang said. The Golden Wolf King said secretly, "Let's work together to kill him, and then I'll give you a big treasure." Qin Feiyang laughed secretly and said, "The big treasure you're talking about should be the treasures in the Silver Wolf King's lair." "How do you know?" The Golden Wolf King was surprised. Qin Feiyang said, "It's very simple. Those treasures are now in my pocket." "What?" The Golden Wolf King's body trembled. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he transmitted his voice. "If you're willing to give me the divine bow, I can agree to work together with you." "In your dreams," the Golden Wolf King roared. Then, with the divine bow, it turned around and began to escape with a mysterious footwork. "Want to leave?" "No way!" Lu Xingqian roared and quickly blocked in front of the Golden Wolf King. two wisps of divine consciousness madly attacking. Qin Feiyang also quickly chased and blocked the Golden Wolf King's rear. The 4 moves of Ruins of End and the 3 moves of Moon Eclipse bombarded the Golden Wolf King. There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. At this moment, the Golden Wolf King was really forced into a corner. With a painful howl, it fell to the ground with heavy injuries. The divine bow also fell to the ground, and its light quickly dimmed. Whoosh! Lu Xingqian looked at the divine bow and his eyes shone. He immediately executed a perfect support-type battle technique and rushed toward the divine bow. Don't even think about it. Chapter 1500. However, just as the 2 of them were about to reach the divine bow, they gave up on the divine bow and turned to grab the Golden Wolf King. Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian did not expect this sudden turn of events. The 2 of them were stunned and looked at each other at the same time. Lu Xingqian grinned and said, "It seems that we have the same idea. Yes, I have to admit that we have quite a tacit understanding." Qin Feiyang nodded. That's right. Their target was not the divine bow, but the Golden Wolf King. Of course, in the beginning their target was indeed the divine bow. After all, it was a divine artifact. However, after witnessing the Golden Wolf King's ability, they changed their target to the Golden Wolf King. What they valued was the Golden Wolf King's vitality. The Golden Wolf King's resurrection of the divine bow had endless vitality. Although they did not know what was going on, just this point alone made the Golden Wolf King more valuable than the divine bow. Therefore, they were willing to give up the divine bow to get the Golden Wolf King. But who would have thought that the 2 of them had the same idea? Damn, am I a cake? You guys are fighting over it. Do you still have any respect for me? The Golden Wolf King was furious. Shut up! Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian shouted at the same time. Lu Xingqian reached out and grabbed the Golden Wolf King's tail. Qin Feiyang also dove down and reached out his arm to grab the Golden Wolf King's front leg. The 2 of them pulled hard, and the Golden Wolf King immediately rose into the air and hovered in the air. It's broken, it's broken. Let go! The Golden Wolf King howled in pain. The 2 of them ignored it and looked up at each other angrily. I don't want the divine artifact. Give it to me, Qin Feiyang said. In your dreams, Lu Xingqian sneered. The 2 of them couldn't help but increase their strength. Ow! The tail is really broken. You 2 bastards, hurry up and let go. I can't take it anymore. My skin is open and bleeding. The Golden Wolf King howled and cursed. However, Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian turned a deaf ear to it. One of them grabbed the Golden Wolf King's tail, and the other grabbed the Golden Wolf King's front leg, as if they were in a tug of war. The Golden Wolf King's tail and front legs really did split open, and blood flowed out. Lu Xingqian raised his eyebrows and looked at the Golden Wolf King. Golden Wolf King, I am the Emperor of the Heavenly Sun Empire. I have countless treasures. As long as you follow me, I guarantee that you will have no worries for the rest of your life. The Golden Wolf King was stunned. Qin Feiyang sneered and looked at Lu Xingqian. What's the use of treasures for people and beasts at our level of cultivation? That makes sense. It's really useless. The Golden Wolf King nodded. He rolled his eyes and smiled obsequiously. Since you have the same goal, why don't you sit down and talk? Why make a fuss? Let go. I can't hold on any longer. Lu Xingqian looked at Qin Feiyang and said, You let go first. Do you think I'm an idiot? Once I let go, you'll send it to the divine artifact. What can I do? You have to let go first. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Lu Xingqian said, You also have a divine artifact. What you're worried about is naturally what I'm worried about. Okay. Don't let go. It's fine as long as you don't pull. This prince's old body really can't withstand your torment. The Golden Wolf King said helplessly. Lu Xingqian looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Can I?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them retracted their strength at the same time. The Golden Wolf King felt better this time. He said, "I can see that the two of you are not simple. It doesn't matter who I follow, but the premise is that you have to give me satisfactory conditions." The Golden Wolf King added, "Let me say this in advance. Ordinary things don't catch my eye." Lu Xingqian asked, "Then what do you want?" "What do I want?" The Golden Wolf King pondered for a moment and said, "For example, a perfect auxiliary battle art. Right? It has to be suitable for me to cultivate." "A perfect auxiliary battle art?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. He frowned and said, "Don't you have it?" The Golden Wolf King said, "I have it, but my brother doesn't." "The Silver Wolf King?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Yes. Although we have found many perfect auxiliary battle arts over the years, we have only found one that is suitable for us to cultivate. Since my brother gave it to me, I naturally have to help him find one. Of course, it would be better if there is an auxiliary battle art suitable for us to cultivate." The Golden Wolf King chuckled. "I didn't expect you to be such a loyal guy," Qin Feiyang said, but in his heart he was secretly relieved. The Silver Wolf King didn't have a perfect auxiliary battle art, so there was no way he could rush over to meet up with the Golden Wolf King in a short period of time. Lu Xingqian's eyes flashed and said, "I don't have any auxiliary battle arts or battle arts suitable for you to cultivate, but I have a potential pill that can help you open all the doors of potential." "Ah." Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Xingqian in astonishment. He used his trump card so quickly? One had to know. Opening the door of potential had an irresistible temptation to any person or beast. Qin Feiyang also immediately looked at the Golden Wolf King and said, "I also have a potential pill." Lu Xingqian said angrily, "I gave you your pill scripture." "Don't make it sound so nice. I got the pill scripture with my own ability. What does it have to do with you?" Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. "Why are you being so unreasonable?" Lu Xingqian gritted his teeth. "What I said is reasonable," Qin Feiyang said. "Wait." The Golden Wolf King hurriedly interrupted the two and said in surprise, "Are you sure you're not joking?" "Of course." The two nodded at the same time. "Not only are you so strong, but you also have such a heaven-defying pill. What kind of monsters are you?" The Golden Wolf King was dumbfounded. "As I said, I used to be a war god. If you follow me, not only can I help you open the door of potential, but I can also help you comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a god. You have to know that in today's world, a real war god is already peerless. With my help, you'll get twice the result with half the effort." Lu Xingqian looked at the Golden Wolf King and said, "Really? Don't treat me as a 3-year-old kid." The Golden Wolf King looked at Lu Xingqian doubtfully. Lu Xingqian said proudly, "If I wasn't a war god in the past, would I have divine sense now?" "That's true." The Golden Wolf King nodded and said to Qin Feiyang, "What about you? What conditions can you offer that I'm interested in?" Qin Feiyang glanced at Lu Xingqian, then looked at the Golden Wolf King and said, "Although I'm not a war god, there are countless dire beasts following me, such as the Crocodile Emperor, the Scorpion Emperor, the Ant Emperor, and the Spider Emperor. They're all by my side now." "Is that so?" The Golden Wolf King was surprised. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the Scorpion Emperor and the other 3 beasts appeared out of thin air. The Golden Wolf King was stunned and cursed angrily. "Bastards, you actually followed a human. Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you feel ashamed? On the contrary, I feel that it's an honor to follow Boss Qin. Wolf Cub, you should choose Boss Qin. He treats us dire beasts very well, just like family." The four beasts instigated. Family? The Golden Wolf King was stunned. I'm not lying to you. You know our character. If Boss Chin doesn't treat us well, would we follow him so loyally? Especially Little Crocodile. Even the divine armor was willingly given to Boss Chin. You can imagine how good Boss Chin is as a person. On the other hand, Lu Xingqian. Speaking of this, the eyes of the Scorpion Emperor and the other three beasts were filled with shocking murderous intent. What happened to him? The Golden Wolf King was surprised. The Scorpion Emperor said coldly, "He slaughtered all our people. His methods are extremely ruthless." Lu Xingqian's pupil shrank. What? The Golden Wolf King's expression changed. The Crocodile Emperor shouted, "Lu Xingqian, you dared to say that you didn't kill our people." Lu Xingqian was silent. "It seems that you admit it. I swear that I will kill you with my own hands." The Crocodile Emperor said each word with a murderous intent. "And us," the Scorpion Emperor, the Ant Emperor, and the Spider Emperor said sternly. Lu Xingqian glanced at the four beasts, his eyes flickering. The Golden Wolf King also looked at Qin Feiyang and Lu Xingqian, his eyes rolling. Suddenly, battle aura surged. The Golden Wolf King cut off his own tail. Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment and was overjoyed. He quickly let go of the Golden Wolf King and protected the Golden Wolf King behind him. The Golden Wolf King poked his head out and looked at Lu Xingqian. "You're too inhumane. I'd better stay away from you." Lu Xingqian did not say a word. He turned around and dashed toward the divine bow. He did not get the Golden Wolf King. If he did not get the divine bow, then all his efforts would have been in vain. The Crocodile Emperor shouted, "Wolf Cub, don't let him succeed." "It won't be that easy." The Golden Wolf King smiled coldly. His blood chi surged, and the divine bow shone brightly. A monstrous aura rushed out. Caught off guard, Lu Xingqian was immediately pushed back. At the same time, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and dashed in front of Lu Xingqian. He took out the ancient castle and smashed it toward Lu Xingqian's head without saying a word. "Boss, smash his head!" The Crocodile Emperor and the other beasts could not help but roar. But just as the ancient castle was about to fall, Lu Xingqian suddenly disappeared without a trace. "Bastard! He escaped like that. He's really lucky." The Crocodile Emperor and the other beasts were furious. "Hey!" Seeing this, the Golden Wolf King suddenly grinned. Boom! A monstrous aura surged and blasted Qin Feiyang, the Crocodile Emperor, and the other beasts away. Then the Golden Wolf King took the divine bow and dashed toward the White Bone Canyon without looking back. "Wolf Cub, you bastard! We're not done with you." Qin Feiyang, the Crocodile Emperor, and the other beasts did not expect this. Bang! Bang! The man and the four beasts crashed into the ground, creating a deep pit. They were dizzy. "TSK, a bunch of trash. You want to fight with me? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself? Qin Feiyang, right? Just you wait. When my brother comes, I'll let you know why flowers are so beautiful." The Golden Wolf King laughed without even turning his head. He was extremely pleased with himself. Qin Feiyang dashed out of the deep pit and looked at the Golden Wolf King's back. His face was full of anger. "This bastard is really cunning." Swish! At this moment, Lu Xingqian appeared out of thin air again. He looked at Qin Feiyang and mocked. "Now I feel better. All my efforts were in vain." "Is that so? You must have used up a lot of your divine sense after fighting with the Golden Wolf King for a few hours." Chapter 1501. Lu Xingqian clenched his fists. Originally, he wanted to see Qin Feiyang's dejected look, but he didn't expect Qin Feiyang to say such words. His face suddenly darkened, because in the process of fighting with the Golden Wolf King, He had indeed consumed a lot of his divine sense. On the other hand, Qin Feiyang had only suffered a little injury, and the loss was almost negligible. In short, Qin Feiyang was mocking him. He had used up so much divine sense, but in the end it was all for naught. He didn't get anything. I really don't want to open your scars. But there's no other way. You're just so insensible. Last time in the water source of the crocodile, you lost more divine sense than this time, right? But what did you get in the end? You didn't even get a fruit of creation, and now it's the same again. Why are you so unlucky? I can't help but start to sympathize with you. Qin Feiyang's face was full of ridicule. Lu Xingqian's fists clenched tighter and tighter. Okay. This is heaven's will. You can't force it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and laughed. Don't be sarcastic. These 2 times, if you hadn't interfered, would things have turned out this way? Lu Xingqian roared, unable to contain the anger in his heart. Is it my fault? Qin Feiyang was stunned. If it's not your fault, whose fault is it? Like this time, if you hadn't interfered, the Golden Wolf King might have been subdued by me. I'm really unlucky to always run into a jinx like you, Lu Xingqian said angrily, his face as dark as water. I'm a jinx? Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment before he said in dissatisfaction, I don't like what you just said. When I first arrived, you were clearly at a disadvantage. It was only because of my participation that you started to turn the situation around. Then should I thank you? Lu Xingqian sneered. Of course. According to the situation at the time, if nothing unexpected happened, you would have been skinned even if you didn't die. Don't you think you should thank me? Qin Feiyang said confidently. Forget it. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I admit defeat these 2 times. Let's continue next time. Also, I only killed the Scorpion King's people. Crocodile Emperor, Ant Emperor, and Spider Emperor's people were not killed by me. I, Lu Xingqian, dare to take responsibility for my actions, but I don't want to take the blame for others. With that, Lu Xingqian turned around and strode away. What? He didn't kill our people. The Spider Emperor, Ant Emperor, and Crocodile Emperor looked at each other with bewilderment in their eyes. Crocodile Emperor said angrily, If it's not you, then who is it? Zhuge Mingyang. Lu Xingqian said. Zhuge Mingyang. Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled. He took a step in front of Lu Xingqian and said in a deep voice, You and I both know his cultivation level. It's impossible for him to have such ability. Lu Xingqian said, That's what I'm wondering too. Zhuge Mingyang clearly died in my hands, but now he suddenly came back to life. Why do I feel that he's somewhat similar to you in the past? Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. What do you mean? Are you suspecting that I've possessed Zhuge Mingyang? Lu Xingqian raised his eyebrows. Otherwise, how do you explain it? Qin Feiyang said. What a joke. If it's really me, would I deny it? Moreover, we're not even together. How can I possess him? Lu Xingqian said angrily. Then what's going on? Qin Feiyang's brows were tightly knitted. You're asking me? I'm the one who wants to ask you. Lu Xingqian glared at him and walked past Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Lu Xingqian's back. His eyes flickered. Boss, are we letting him go just like that? He admitted it himself. He's the one who killed Little Scorpion's people. Aren't we going to avenge Little Scorpion? Crocodile Emperor said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. As long as the Space Divine item is still there, we can't kill him. Fighting with him is a waste of time. Ant Emperor said, so we're just going to let it go like that. Qin Feiyang looked at Crocodile Emperor, Ant Emperor, and Spider Emperor, then turned to Scorpion Emperor. Scorpion Emperor lowered his head and looked extremely lonely. We'll remember this. When I have the chance in the future, I'll definitely kill him and avenge your people. Qin Feiyang comforted. Scorpion Emperor nodded. Qin Feiyong looked at Crocodile Emperor and the other two beasts and said, "And you guys don't worry. If I can kill Zhuge Mingyang once, I can kill him a second time." The three beasts also nodded. Scorpion Emperor asked, "Then what should we do next?" Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, "Let's find Dan Wankai and fire Qilin first, then deal with the Golden Wolf King and Silver Wolf King." Finished. He closed his eyes and sensed the location of Dan Wankai and fire Qilin. A moment later, he suddenly opened his eyes, his face full of joy, and said, "Dan Wankai and fire Qilin are nearby." "Where?" Scorpion Emperor asked. Qin Feiyong laughed. "Dan Wankai is in the north, fire Qilin is in the south." Scorpion Emperor said, "Then quickly call them over." Qin Feiyong nodded. Boom! However, at this moment, suddenly, a loud sound came from the south, shaking the sky. Roar! Following closely, a furious roar could be heard. "This is Fire Qilin's voice. Could it be that Lu Xingqian found it?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. Crocodile Emperor said, No, Lu Xingqian just went to the southwest direction. The direction is a little off. It is impossible to find fire Qilin." Qin Feiyong's face sank, and with a wave of his hand, Ling Yunfei and the white-eyed wolf appeared. Qin Feiyong immediately looked at Ling Yunfei and the white-eyed wolf and said, "You guys go find Dan Wankai, I'll go find fire Qilin. Come and meet me later." After that, Qin Feiyong reminded again, "Be careful of Lu Xingqian. According to his character, it is very likely that he will return." Okay, Ling Yunfei and the white-eyed wolf nodded, turned around and rushed to the north. Qin Feiyong did not delay and used the phantom steps and rushed to the place where fire Qilin was. The Scorpion Emperor and the other three beasts became palm-sized, lying on his left and right shoulders. After 10 breaths, in the distance, a majestic mountain ridge appeared. Qin Feiyong stopped and looked at the mountain ridge. Suddenly, he looked at a certain place in the mountain ridge, and there was a familiar aura there. And this aura was not concealed at all. It was as if it was not afraid of being discovered. Crocodile Emperor asked, "Is it Zhuge Mingyang?" "It is him. Although it is far and I can't see clearly, I am too familiar with his aura. I will never forget it." Qin Feiyong said. Crocodile Emperor was surprised. Could it be that fire Qilin is in his hands? Impossible. I know Zhuge Mingyang. When he captured me, he was only a 3-star combat emperor. He could not do anything to fire Qilin. Spider Emperor said, "So weak? Then how did he kill our clansmen?" Crocodile Emperor was shocked. "I don't know." Spider Emperor shook his head. "Let's not worry about this first. Fire Qilin's roar came from the mountain ridge, but why can't I sense its aura?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. The 4 beasts looked at each other, and looked at Qin Feiyong at the same time, and said, "There is only one explanation. Fire Qilin has been killed." "What?" Qin Feiyong's face turned pale, but immediately he shook his head hard and said, "Impossible." "Why?" The 4 beasts were puzzled. "Zhuge Mingyang did not conceal his aura, which means that he is deliberately waiting for me here, and he knows my methods. It is impossible for him to kill me. So even if fire Qilin is in his hands, he is not willing to kill it." Qin Feiyong said, "Then why does he want to use fire Qilin?" Crocodile Emperor was suspicious. "Using fire Qilin to threaten me. If fire Qilin really fell into his hands, I think his Qi Si should have been destroyed by him, so he can't sense fire Qilin's aura." Qin Feiyong guessed. "That makes sense." The 4 beasts nodded. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment, then suddenly turned to look at the Ant Emperor and smiled. "It's time to use your ability." "My ability?" The Ant Emperor was stunned. "Yes, your ability. Do you still remember how you dealt with me when we first met?" Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. The Ant Emperor was stunned for a moment, then suddenly smiled and said, I understand you're talking about this emperor's innate ability, transformation. That's right. You transform into my appearance and confuse Zhuge Mingyang. I will activate the concealment technique and sneak over to rescue Fire Qilin. Qin Feiyang said. All right. The ant emperor nodded and jumped down from Qin Feiyang's shoulder. When it landed on the ground, its body immediately emitted a bloody light. In the next moment, a living Qin Feiyang appeared in front of everyone. Blood-red eyes, blood-red hair, almost no different from Qin Feiyang's original body. Qin Feiyang then activated the Crocodile Emperor and the other two beasts and said, "The three of you follow the Ant Emperor, just in case." All right. The Crocodile Emperor and the other two beasts jumped up and landed on the Ant Emperor's shoulder. "Be careful. Don't reveal any flaws," Qin Feiyang warned. "Don't worry. Even you couldn't tell the difference back then, let alone him." The Ant Emperor smiled confidently, then took a step forward and rushed towards the mountain ridge. Qin Feiyang also activated the concealment technique and silently sneaked over. Not long later, 1 man and 4 beasts arrived at the mountain ridge. Immediately, a figure that could not be more familiar entered Qin Feiyang's line of sight. It was Zhuge Mingyang. He stood on top of the mountain ridge, his entire body emitting an imposing aura as he stepped on a fiery red beast with 1 foot. That beast was the Fire Qilin. Qin Feiyang could clearly see that in the Fire Qilin's abdomen, there was a fist-sized bloody hole that was bleeding. Sure enough, his Qi was crippled. The Ant Emperor muttered secretly, "I'm sorry, I've implicated you again." The Fire Qilin looked at the Ant Emperor and sighed, as if it could not tell the truth. "Why are you being so polite between us?" The Ant Emperor chuckled, raised his head and looked at Zhuge Mingyang and said, "I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." "Yeah," Zhuge Mingyang nodded and joked. "Are you surprised to see that I'm still alive?" "Of course I'm surprised that a person who was clearly dead suddenly jumped out. But it doesn't matter to me. Anyway, it's just a clown. It can't cause any big waves." The Ant Emperor said disdainfully. "A clown," Zhuge Mingyang muttered. "Haha!" Suddenly, he raised his head and laughed loudly, looked at the Ant Emperor and said, "Do you believe that one day I, this clown, will be able to consign you to eternal damnation?" "Is that so?" Chapter 1502. Looking at the Ant Queen's arrogant attitude, Zhuge Mingyang frowned and said, "You really haven't changed at all. No matter when, in front of anyone, you still feel that you are superior." "I can't help it. That's how I am. If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold." "When have you, Zhuge Mingyang, ever been polite to me?" "Of course I won't be polite to you," the Ant Emperor said indifferently. "Haha, what a good, you're not polite. Since that's the case, let's shed all pretense of cordiality." Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "Do you still have any shame?" the Ant Emperor asked. Zhuge Mingyang ignored the Ant Emperor's sarcasm and stepped on the Fire Qilin under his feet. He laughed and said, "Do you want to live?" The Ant Emperor nodded. Zhuge Mingyang said, "Then we'll use the castle and Changshui in exchange. Listen carefully, there's no room for negotiation." "Castle, Changshui," the Ant Emperor murmured and sneered. "Your appetite is really big. Aren't you afraid of exploding?" "That's none of your business. Hand it over immediately or else," Zhuge Mingyang laughed sinisterly. Although he only said half of it, everyone understood that he wanted to kill the Fire Qilin. The Ant Emperor frowned. "You don't have time to think, and you don't have a choice." Zhuge Mingyang's eyes turned cold and his aura exploded. A wisp of battle, qi shot out from his fingertip and into the Fire Qilin's body like an arrow. Roar! Immediately, another bloody hole appeared and divine blood splattered everywhere. "What?" 7-star Combat Emperor. The Ant Emperor and the others trembled. Qin Feiyang, who was approaching the fire Qilin, also had a face full of disbelief. Last time in the Spider Emperor's territory, Zhuge Mingyang's cultivation was only a 3-star combat emperor. How long had it been? He had actually surpassed him and stepped into the 7-star combat emperor realm. How did this person achieve such a leap in breakthrough? Are you surprised by my cultivation? Are you surprised? Haha. Actually, I still have to thank you properly. It was you who allowed me to transform into what I am today. To repay you, I won't kill you, because I want you to watch with your own eyes as I ascend to the top of this world step by step. I want everything in this world to submit to me, Zhuge Mingyang. Zhuge Mingyang threw his head back and laughed maniacally. His long hair danced wildly in the air like a demonic god. But suddenly, a sharp pain came from his lower abdomen. The laughter stopped abruptly. Zhuge Mingyang lowered his head and looked at his lower abdomen. Immediately, he saw a vigorous hand holding a dagger in front of his lower abdomen. The dagger seemed to be made of divine jade, shining with divine light. The entire blade had sunk into his lower abdomen. Fresh blood flowed down the blade and dripped onto the ground. This is Chang Shui. Zhuge Mingyang felt as if he was struck by lightning. In the next instant, Qin Feiyang appeared in front of him. How is this possible? Zhuge Mingyang's eyes trembled. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. Then he looked at the Ant King with a face full of shock. How could there be two Qin Feiyang? The Ant King grinned, and its body emitted a bloody light. When the bloody light dissipated, it returned to its original form. It's you! Zhuge Mingyang's eyes were wide open in anger. Surprised? Surprised? The Ant King joked. You think you have a good chance of winning? Naive. Calling you a clown is already giving you too much credit. A fool like you doesn't deserve to be Boss Qin's opponent. The Crocodile Emperor and the other two beasts were also full of ridicule. Haha, Zhuge Mingyang laughed. But his laugh was particularly miserable. It turned out that Qin Feiyang had already set up a trap. How stupid! Boom! Qin Feiyang waved his hand and slapped Zhuge Mingyang away. Then he put away the Chang Shui and looked down at the fire Qilin with a smile. Are you all right? I'm fine. The fire Qilin struggled to get up and shook its head. Qin Feiyang took out a healing pill and a spirit sea pill and put them in the fire Qilin's mouth. He was puzzled. How did you fall into his hands? I've been lurking here. Just a while ago, I sensed your energy and wanted to meet up with you. But I didn't expect Zhuge Mingyang to be here too. He suddenly attacked me. I was too careless this time. If you didn't help me, I'm afraid, sigh. The fire Qilin sighed. Qin Feiyang patted its head and said with a smile, Go to the castle to recover. No need. The fire Qilin shook its head. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Ever since I entered the divine sight, I felt as if something was calling me. I want to see it alone. The fire Qilin said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, Even so, we can go together. I'm really worried about you going alone. It's okay. I'll be careful in the future. You go to your own things. Besides, I also want to explore the divine sight alone. The fire Qilin smiled. This, Qin Feiyang frowned. The fire Qilin said, Don't worry, I'll leave the divine sight alive. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and said, Since you insist, I won't force you. Be careful on the way. Okay. The fire Qilin nodded. Qin Feiyang said, By the way, have you seen Dan Wang Kai? No. He's here too? The fire Qilin was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, I've already asked the white-eyed wolf to look for him. I believe he'll join us soon. So now, who hasn't been found? The fire Qilin asked. Qin Feiyang said, There's also the viper, the two-winged snow eagle, the pangolin, the black dragon snake. Do you think I don't exist? But before Qin Feiyang finished speaking, an angry roar sounded. Qin Feiyang turned his head and saw Zhuge Mingyang half kneeling on the ground, covering his bleeding lower abdomen, looking up and glaring at him and the fire Qilin. "You're still here," Qin Feiyang said in surprise. "What do you mean? Do you really think I don't exist? Am I so unbearable in your eyes?" Zhuge Mingyang said angrily. Sorry, I really forgot about you just now, but in the future I won't forget you again, trust me. I'll definitely remember you in my heart at all times." Qin Feiyang quickly smiled apologetically. Zhuge Mingyang's face was as cold as water. He would be a fool if he believed this nonsense. Qin Feiyang was obviously teasing him. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Don't be angry. What if you hurt your body? The state preceptor will be heartbroken. After all, he has high hopes for you. You're just an abandoned child with a life of your own and no one to teach you. What are you so proud of in front of me? I, Zhuge Mingyang, am not as good as you, but I've never lacked love in my life. What about you? I really want to know how it feels to be destroyed by your own father and driven out of the capital." Zhuge Mingyang sneered. Qin Feiyang's face instantly darkened. "What's wrong? Did I touch your sore spot?" Zhuge Mingyang laughed and sighed. "To be honest, sometimes I really sympathize with you. You didn't do anything wrong. Why are you being treated like this? Enough!" Qin Feiyang shouted. He took a step forward and grabbed Zhuge Mingyang's neck. His blood-red eyes flashed with shocking killing intent. "I want to say it, because the more I see you in pain, the happier I feel. Answer me. Do you really want to know the reason why your father hurt you?" I can tell you. Zhuge Mingyang was not afraid at all. He had a playful look on his face. "What's the reason?" Qin Feiyang said word by word. "The reason is that you're not your father's biological son. You're your mother's illegitimate son with an outsider." Zhuge Mingyang laughed cruelly. "What?" Qin Feiyang's body and mind trembled. "You didn't expect it, did you? I can't believe that your most beloved mother is such an indecent woman. Is it funny? Anyway, I think it's very funny." "Haha," Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "I don't believe it. I won't allow you to tarnish my mother's reputation." Qin Feiyang roared and clenched his fist. "This is the truth. You have to believe it. Sooner or later. You'll get the proof," Zhuge Mingyang roared. "Shut up." Qin Feiyang roared and bared his teeth. He crushed Zhuge Mingyang's neck on the spot and took his last breath. "Boss, don't listen to him. He's a bastard. He's deliberately using lies to provoke you." "I think so too. Although we haven't met your mother, we can tell from your character that she's definitely not such a person." The Crocodile Emperor and the other beasts quickly came forward to persuade him. Qin Feiyang let go of his hand and lowered his head in silence. Fire Qilin looked at Zhuge Mingyang and Qin Feiyang and said, "Trust your own judgment and intuition. Don't be influenced by others." Qin Feiyang looked up at the beasts and said, "What are you guys thinking? How can I not trust my own mother?" "Then why are you so depressed?" The 5 beasts looked at him suspiciously. "I just suddenly thought of my mother. My mother's whereabouts are unknown. I don't know if she's dead or alive. I'm worried." Qin Feiyang sighed. "So that's why." The 5 beasts nodded in realization. They originally thought that Qin Feiyang really believed Zhuge Mingyang's nonsense. Phew! Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked down at Zhuge Mingyang. "Let's go and meet up with the White-Eyed Wolf and the others." "Wait," the Spider Emperor said. "What?" Everyone looked at it suspiciously. The Spider Emperor laughed and revealed its true form. The claws under its abdomen were like sharp blades. In front of everyone, it cut Zhuge Mingyang's body into 8 pieces. Qin Feiyang, Fire Qilin, and the Crocodile Emperor looked at each other. "Let's see how you're going to come back from the dead." Finally, the Spider Emperor sprayed a large amount of venom on Zhuge Mingyang's body. Then it shrunk its body and jumped up and landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. Our dead clansmen can be considered avenged. The Crocodile Emperor sighed. Yes, the Ant Emperor nodded. Everything will be fine. Trust me. Qin Feiyang patted the heads of the three beasts and comforted them. Then he led everyone to the north. I'm not going, Fire Qilin said. You're leaving? Qin Feiyang was stunned. My energy reserve is almost recovered. It's time to go. Fire Qilin nodded. The Crocodile Emperor hurriedly said, Don't. We just met and haven't had a good chat. Chat about what? You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.